Chapter 155. How strange. Di Shitian thought to himself. When he came into contact with the illusory door, he felt as if he had stepped into water. It was extremely cool. However, before he could fully appreciate it, his body passed through the door. In the blink of an eye, the scenery in front of him changed abruptly. His feet were in the air, and he didn't know when he had appeared in mid-air. He was dozens of meters above the ground. If he were to fall, even with his strong demonic body, he would be dizzy on the spot and faint for a while. Imperial Wind Technique. Di Shitian's mind was calm. When he saw this, he didn't panic at all. He immediately used the Imperial Wind Technique. Suddenly, a black wind appeared and wrapped around his body. Demonic chi spread out in all directions. With a thought, the demonic wind wrapped around his body and he slowly descended to the ground. At the same time, his eyes shone brightly as he quickly scanned his surroundings. When he looked, he was really shocked. Below him seemed to be a forest. Above him was a layer of strange fog. Looking from above, he couldn't see anything. In the haze, he couldn't tell which direction he was going. It seemed to be filled with a mysterious color. As he looked around, his body quickly descended. In the blink of an eye, he passed through the fog and landed on the ground. Clang! Just as Sakura steadied himself on the ground, he didn't have the time to look at the surrounding scenery. Suddenly, a strange sound that carried the sound of slaughter suddenly rang out from behind him. At the same time, along with the sound, a sharp sound of breaking through the air blasted towards his back with lightning speed at an unimaginable speed. Not good. As soon as Sakura heard the sound, his two pupils suddenly congealed and his heart started to beat violently. He muttered to himself that this was bad. Without even thinking, he instinctively slapped in the direction where the person came from. Crash! At the same time, a thick layer of black light appeared on his right hand. Within the black light, demonic chi flowed out of the small pores on his arm. His arm suddenly reversed in the demonic chi. Countless black needle-like hairs appeared on his originally bronze-colored arm. Like an inflated balloon, it violently expanded, instantly tearing the clothes on his arm into countless pieces. It transformed into a huge tiger claw and slapped backward. With a slap, waves of demonic chi rushed into the tiger claw. After 9 revolutions in the claw, the demonic chi spat out and directly condensed into a pitch-black tiger claw. High up in the air, the demonic chi smashed towards the thing that was attacking him like lightning. The tiger claw followed closely behind. Now, Di Shitian's demonic chi was extremely pure under the refinement of the demon refining cauldron. Once he attacked, the domineering aura of the king of beasts seemed to be able to shatter the space under his claws. His feet did not stop at all as he quickly turned around. Crack! Unexpectedly, the sudden attack was really powerful. The tiger claw condensed from demonic chi was smashed into pieces upon collision. Then, the real body's tiger claw slammed into the mysterious attack without any cover. Bang! Di Shitian's burly body trembled violently as his expression changed slightly. The black hair behind his head fluttered wildly without any wind. Waves of demonic chi soared into the sky. The demon refining cauldron in the demonic palace trembled violently and spat out waves of pitch-black demonic chi into his body at lightning speed. Break! Lin Feng raised his eyebrows and the purple mark on his forehead flickered violently. It looked like a ball of purple flames. A terrifying pressure emerged from the mark. Lin Feng shouted in a cold voice. In a flash, there was a rumbling sound in front of him and a sharp energy burst out in all directions. Who? You actually attacked me with a sound blade. On Sakura's outstretched tiger claw, there was actually a terrifying tiny wound. A drop of bright red blood dripped down from the claw. Sound blade, that's right, it was a sound blade. When he turned around, he instantly saw what was bombarding towards him. It was actually a blood-colored sound blade that was filled with a murderous aura. Moreover, the sound blade contained terrifying power and was incomparably sharp. It was actually able to cut open a wound on his well-tempered demonic body. One could imagine how sharp this attack was. Although the human body could not fully display the power of the demonic body, the power of the sound blade could be seen. At this moment, he was extremely shocked. When he entered, Elder Di and Elder Xiao had said that the Zither realm was extremely dangerous. Once he entered, he could die at any time. However, who would have thought that this kind of danger would be immediately felt as soon as he entered? It really was a show of strength. Alarm bells rang in his heart. It had to be said that when he came into contact with the sound blade, he could feel that its power was not inferior to any Foundation establishment cultivators. It was equivalent to the full power attack of a late Foundation establishment cultivator. Even he had suffered a small loss in his haste. If it were anyone else, there was an 80% to 90% chance that they would have been killed by the sound blade. His eyes shone brightly as he looked in the direction of the sound. With a quick glance, the surrounding objects appeared in front of his eyes. He saw that the surrounding trees were very strange. They did not seem to be in an ordinary mountain forest. These trees were somewhat different. There seemed to be peeper trees, parasol trees, various kinds of bamboos, and so on. On the ground, the mountain rocks were scattered messily. In front of him was a woman with jade-like skin. She held a jade peeper in her arms. Her face emitted traces of killing intent. When she saw Di Shitian, it was as if she had seen a mortal enemy. She wanted to kill him right in front of her. "Who are you?" Di Shitian frowned. He was secretly on guard. If he was not mistaken, there was no woman among the cultivators who entered. Moreover, he had never seen this woman before. They had never met, but she looked at him as if he had killed her father. The mysteries of the Guqin realm were deeply imprinted in his mind. Those who enter the Guqin realm, die. The woman stared at Di Shitian with her blood-red eyes. She spat out these words without a trace of emotion. Clang, clang, clang. Spitting out a cold sentence, the slender fingers in her hand fiercely plucked the peeper in her bosom. Instantly, 3 peeper sounds that were filled with killing intent resounded in succession. Along with the peeper sounds, 3 crescent moon-shaped blood-colored sound blades mysteriously shot out from the peeper. Forming a triangular shape, they instantly pounced towards Sakura. The killing intent that was emitted from the sound blades seemed to have faintly sealed the space around him. He could not help but feel that he was unstoppable. He wanted to be helpless and be at the mercy of others. As soon as the peeper sounded, the surroundings became silent. The killing intent enveloped the area. "Today, I don't care who you are. Apart from myself, no one dares to take my life. No one can take it. No one can. No one wants to kill me. I will kill them." When Di Shitian saw that the woman was attacking again, his eyes became indifferent. He touched his storage bag. With a flash of light, a long black blade appeared in his hand. This black blade was more than a meter long. It was incomparably heavy. When he held it in his hand, it weighed no less than a few hundred kilograms. The black light on the blade flowed like water. On the blade, there were strands of cold light. It could be seen that this was not an ordinary blade. It was a magic tool that Di Shitian found on the cultivator's body. It was a weapon. He did not know how to use a blade, but he had some understanding of the basic blade techniques. His right hand gripped the hilt of the blade tightly. He took a step forward. The long blade in his hand followed the momentum of this step and slashed out horizontally. Swoosh! Di Shitian's blade was really sharp. His body was incomparably strong. Compared to a human, his strength was many times stronger. In addition, he poured a large amount of demon vitality into the blade. This blade was as fast as lightning. It drew a pitch-black arc in front of him. It slashed on a sound blade. Bang! The sound blade was sharp and was formed by sound waves. It was filled with a terrifying vibrating force, but under the blade of Sakura that was infused with a huge amount of demon chi, it couldn't withstand it. In the blink of an eye, it was shattered under the blade. Slash! 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 Sakura kept yelling, but the black saber in his hand didn't stop at all. With a twist of his wrist, he lifted the saber up and chopped down on the second sound blade. Then, he took a step forward and stabbed forward with the tip of the saber facing the sound blade. The demon chi he poured into the saber turned into a sharp saber light, crushing the last sound blade into pieces. After breaking the 3 sound blades, he took 2 steps forward. Dense and terrifying cracks appeared on the ground. Like a spiderweb, they spread out in all directions. Kill. The purple king-patterned tiger king on his forehead seemed to be abnormally excited. It jumped crazily, and waves of the tiger king's domineering aura surged out in all directions like a tide. It was like the might of the heavens as it pressed down on the mysterious woman. His body was overflowing with demon flames. His face was filled with endless coldness. Bang! 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 After shattering the 3 sound blades, Di did not stop there. He stepped forward step by step. As he stepped on the ground trembled violently and countless cracks appeared. His body pounced forward. His aura was like a ferocious tiger coming down from the mountain. There seemed to be a faint tiger roar behind him. The muscles on his arms were like dragons coiling around each other. His ferocious aura seemed to want to devour people. The demon refining cauldron in the demon abode trembled violently. Waves of demon essence gushed out like a fountain and poured into the black saber. Under the injection of demon essence, the black saber suddenly burst out with a demonic black light. The saber aura was like a long rainbow. It was unleashed. Clang, clang, clang. The woman was also strange. There was dead silence in her eyes. It was as if there was no emotion at all. When she saw Di-Shitien's saber slashing toward her, she did not dodge at all. Instead, she was still full of murderous intent. She strummed the pipa forcefully. The 3 sound blades ignored the black saber that was slashing toward her. Instead, they slashed toward Di-Shitien's chest like lightning. For a moment, the scene that appeared in front of them was terrifying. Di-Shitien slashed toward the woman's head. However, the woman did not dodge. Instead, she released 3 terrifying sound blades that could kill Foundation establishment cultivators. The sharp and cold light made one's hair stand on end and heart beat wildly. It was as if she wanted to destroy everything. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidien.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 156. Ding Dong. However, just as the 3 sound blades were about to hit the Sakra's body and blast a few large holes in him, the 7 sins demonic zither that was originally firmly staying in the demon mansion and devouring the power of desire in the surroundings actually transformed into a demonic jade light and escaped from the demon mansion, appearing in front of him. The 9 strings of the zither did not need to be plucked as they automatically bounced. Bursts of zither music sounded rapidly, and circles of sound waves instantly filled the whole body like water ripples, turning into an invisible protective sound field. When the murderous sound blades from the pipa collided with the endless sound waves, it was as if they were really affected by the slow curse, and their lightning-fast speed slowed down on the spot. Moreover, the sound waves from the 7 sins demonic zither came one after another, one wave after another. It was endless, causing the 3 sound blades to be unstoppable. With every step forward, the endless sound waves would continuously reduce the power contained in the sound blades. Of course, their original speed still looked very fast, and their slow speed was only compared to their original speed. Demonic Mist Blade. The demonic mist around Di-Shitien tumbled, and in the blink of an eye, it condensed into pitch-black blades. They rolled up and down, forming an airtight defense. When the sound blades arrived, the demonic mist blade and the sound blades collided with each other, erupting with a violent sound. The terrifying aftermath of the collision shattered the surrounding vegetation and rocks. Die. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but in fact, it all happened in a short instant. When Di-Shitien blocked the sound blades, the pitch-black long blade chopped down on the woman's head. This blade did not show any mercy to the fairer sex, and completely ignored the woman's beautiful appearance. It cut down decisively, and in a flash of black lightning, the long blade had already landed on the woman's head. At the same time, the huge amount of demonic chi poured into the blade almost instantaneously turned into countless sharp blade rays that poured down, engulfing the woman in one fell swoop. Bang! Di-Shitien's all-out attack was so shocking that it could split mountains and split mountain torrents. Under such a shocking blade, how could the woman escape? She was immediately crushed into countless pieces by the thousands of blade rays. No matter what you are, anyone who makes this king an enemy must die. Di Shitian landed on the ground, his body seething with killing intent. The purple king mark on his forehead flickered like flames. Only Wo Mo's aura had become stronger after this battle. It was as if even though he was standing on the ground, he was still high and mighty, and no one could match him. His aura needed to be nurtured. Ever since he had the belief that he was the master of his own destiny, a seed was born in his body. In order to make this seed germinate, he had to rely on his own experience, battle, and temperament to nourish it. He had to make the seed grow strong, make it germinate, and grow into a towering tree. At that time, the unique aura that belonged to him would be truly cultivated. At that time, every move of his would carry a unique aura. As long as a cultivator's intent realm was inferior to his and their cultivation was inferior to his, they would feel as if they were a few inches shorter when they stood in front of him. If they were to fight to the death, it would already be considered quite good if the other party could bring out 80 to 90% of their full strength. He nourished it with killing, with tyranny, and with decisiveness. When he killed the mysterious woman, the seed in his body seemed to have received an abundance of nutrients, and only Wo Mo's aura had become stronger. Although the woman had been killed, the scene after her death shocked Di Shitian. He could not help but raise his eyebrows and stare in front of him. It turned out that the woman had been cut into countless pieces, but strangely, not a single drop of blood flowed out of her body. Instead, it strangely turned into countless wisps of white jade-like essence energy that instantly rushed into the jade peeper she had been holding. With the addition of this essence energy, the jade peeper became even more sparkling and translucent. When it fell to the ground, it gave off a crisp echo. Could it be that this woman was not a human or living creature? After she died, not only did she not leave behind a corpse, but she also turned into a wisp of essence energy that rushed into the peeper. Why is this? Seeing this scene, Di Shitian could not help but be shocked. He really did not expect that the Zither realm would be so mysterious. First, as soon as he entered, he was attacked by this strange woman. Now that he had killed her, the woman did not even leave behind a corpse. Instead, she entered the instrument she had been holding when she was alive. It was very mysterious. He had never heard of such a thing. It seems that the Zither realm is indeed as the two elders Di and Xiao said. It is extremely dangerous. At any time, I may encounter a life-threatening crisis. If I am not careful, my body and soul will be destroyed immediately, and my demon essence will dissipate on the spot. No, I must find a hidden place as soon as possible to form the demon vein and break through my current cultivation. The higher my strength, the more I have the ability to protect my life in the Zither realm. Otherwise, if there are more women like that, I will be in real danger. Di Shitian knew that no matter when, as long as he was alive, he would have the opportunity to achieve the goal in his heart. If he was not even alive, then no matter how many ideas he had, no matter how many ambitions he had, it would all be for naught. Now, his cultivation had reached the best time to form the first demon vein. Once he succeeded in forming the demon vein, his cultivation would increase greatly. Then, no matter how mysterious the Zither realm was, he would have more ability to protect himself. The strength of the woman's attack just now could be said to not be inferior to any late Foundation establishment cultivator. If 2 or 3 of them had appeared at the same time, he would have thought of a way to escape first. Pater. Relaxing his brows, he looked at the jade peeper on the ground and walked steadily toward it. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the peeper and picked it up from the ground. At the same time, he poured his demon essence into the peeper. With this, his body could not help but tremble. His usually calm face suddenly flashed with a trace of surprise. This peeper is actually a magic weapon, and a high-grade one. The jade peeper was a magic weapon, so Di Shitian did not find it too strange. However, this jade peeper was not only a magic weapon, but also did not seem to have any trace of refinement. It was as if it was naturally formed. It was a whole, without the slightest connection. There was also no formation inside, as if it was the embryo of a magic weapon. As long as a formation was integrated into it and the primordial spirit was imprinted, it would be a high-grade magic weapon. Impossible. How can there be such a strange thing in this world? If there is a magic weapon that is born and nurtured by the heavens, then it should not just be a magic weapon, but a supreme treasure. Strange. There is definitely something strange about this. Could it be that the woman is not human? What is going on? For a moment, it was as if thunder was roaring in his mind. His eyes were filled with bewilderment and suspicion, but he still could not figure out the main point. He secretly frowned and collected his thoughts. No matter what kind of secret this Zither realm has, as long as I am here, I will figure it out sooner or later. He didn't think too much about it and put the jade peeper in his storage bag. This jade peeper was a tool embryo. In the future, as long as he wanted to use it, he could refine it into a high-grade magic tool at any time. It was a rare treasure, even more precious than refining materials. He understood that perhaps the benefits that Elder Di and Elder Xiao said before that he could obtain from the Zither realm should be this if there was no accident. Looking around, there were peepers, bamboos, and so on. They were everywhere. At a glance, he could not see the end. If he flew into the sky, he would only see a dense fog. It was impossible to see how vast this forest, or rather, the entire Zither realm, was. However, he could basically confirm that this was not the original world, but a different space opened up by the Qin family's ancestors with great magical powers. It created a hidden paradise like the Zither realm. There are dangers everywhere in the Zither domain. I am not familiar with it. If I were to wander around randomly, I'm afraid that I would encounter even more dangerous dangers. Since I can't find a hidden cave to hide in, I will directly open up an underground cave and hide underground. Thinking about it, no one will think that I will hide underground. If they can't find my whereabouts, no one will come to disturb me when I form the demon vein. Scanning the surroundings, Sakura had already made a decision in a flash. He didn't go to other places to find a suitable cave residence, and immediately decided to directly make an underground cave nearby and hide in it. It could be said to be the safest and most hidden place, and it just so happened that he could avoid other dangers. As for finding the green silk zither, he was not in a hurry. If the green silk zither was so easy to find, the Qin family would not be so helpless that they could not find it and could not take it out. Once he said he would do it, he did it without hesitation. Open. The black saber in his hand swung under his feet. With a twist of his wrist, the saber shot out a saber light that was several feet long. It was inserted into the ground and quickly dug. With Di Shitian's cultivation, it was not difficult to dig a hole in the ground. It seemed extremely easy. With a roll of the saber light, a large amount of soil and stones were rolled up from the ground. Piles of soil immediately piled up to form a small hill at the side. In only half an hour, a huge cave was dug out in the ground. It was more than 10 feet deep and the size was 4 or 5 meters wide. It was enough to be used as a place for seclusion. Crash! He leaped forward and jumped into the cave. Then, he pinched the wind-controlling technique and rolled the excavated soil back into the cave, covering up the huge cave. There was demonic power that merged the soft soil with the surrounding earth. Underground, Sakura used his demonic aura to block the soil that had been buried, forcibly propping up a small circular space with a radius of 5 meters. Above it, he dug out a small hole to allow the air to circulate between them. Suddenly, a hidden place for seclusion was preliminarily created like this. Then, he used the most basic set of 5 elements formation flags that he had bought in the valley previously and placed them around the cave, forming a 5 elements formation to protect the cave. This set of formation flags wasn't very powerful. It could only defend against a single attack from a Foundation establishment cultivator before it would be destroyed. Therefore, it cost less than 100 spirit stones to buy it. It could also serve as a warning sign during closed-door cultivation. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 157. After setting up the 5 elements formation flag, Di Shitian didn't mind that the ground was dirty. With a wave of his hand, the demon aura rolled out and brushed across the ground. Suddenly, the soil and stones under him became smooth. He sat on the ground. Oh! With a low roar, black chi continued to surge out of his body, filling the entire cave residence in an instant and dispersing the mysterious yin force of the mystic moon-shaping technique. In the blink of an eye, he saw that his whole body immediately began to reverse. First, it was his head, then it turned into a huge tiger head, and the king mark on his forehead flickered. From head to toe, the transformation was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he changed from a human to a demon body. The demonic meridian sculpting could only be done with a demonic body. Furthermore, a human body was forcibly maintained by a secret technique and was not a true form. Therefore, the demonic meridian sculpting could not be done with a human body. Suddenly, he saw that in this cave residence, a huge black tiger was emitting an awe-inspiring tiger aura, lying on the ground. Its eyes were sharp and terrifying, and a strong demon aura was rotating around its body. With a fierce momentum, even if it stood quietly in front of ordinary people, it could frighten the souls of ordinary people out of their bodies. My demon spirit is enough to reach the peak of the early stage of the demon beast. If I don't build the demon vein, it will delay my later cultivation. Now, building the demon vein for the first time is more important. It is the main vein that connects to the heart and the demon mansion. I can't be careless. The stronger the demon vein, the deeper my foundation will be in the future. Sakura recalled the description of the demon vein that he had obtained from the bloodline inheritance. Although he didn't have a good demon cultivation method, the things that he needed to do for the various realms were all mentioned in the inheritance. It could be said that the bloodline inheritance in the Tiger Hill mountain range had a profound impact on him. Without that inheritance, he would never have today's cultivation. He did not know whether other demon clans would form demon veins when they cultivated to the level of demonic beast. He had never asked the other demon clans about such a secret. However, it was not without reason that forming demon veins was regarded as an extremely important step in the bloodline inheritance. Among demonic cultivators, the first three paths, from spirit beasts to demonic beasts, were all part of the foundation. During this process, the more solid one's foundation was, the greater one's future achievements would be. This was equivalent to accumulating one's foundation to break through to a higher level. Therefore, he didn't care whether there was another path or not. He had already decided to cultivate according to the guidance of the bloodline inheritance. Otherwise, if he took a wrong step, then every step in the future would be wrong. He didn't want to walk on the path of cultivation because of this. However, what he didn't know was that most of the demonic beasts' inheritances had already disappeared in the long river of time. The ancient demonic cultivation methods were rarely passed down. Many demonic beasts, when they reached the demonic beast level, would not take the step of forming a demonic meridian because they did not have a cultivation method or the guidance of an orthodox demonic beast. They would continue to cultivate until they reached the peak of the demonic beast level. After that, they would undergo the metamorphosis demonic tribulation and be able to transform. The meridians in their bodies would naturally become the same as those of humans. In the future, they would cultivate according to the complete meridians in the human body. Naturally, their cultivation speed would increase tenfold or even hundredfold. Therefore, the demonic beast clan generally treated metamorphosis as their top priority. And in this way, it was equivalent to the demon cultivator walking on two completely different paths when they were demon beasts. One was to transform and mold the same meridians as humans. The other was like what Sakura was doing now, walking on the path of molding demon meridians. From this point, it could be divided into two types of demonic cultivators. One was the current mainstream, orthodox demonic cultivators. The other was like Di Shitian, which could be called the ancient demonic cultivators. Of course, Di Shitian didn't know all of this now. After transforming into his original form, Di Shitian's eyes narrowed. He thought to himself, the first step of forming a demonic meridian is to shatter the original meridians and use demonic energy to form a new one using a secret method. Whether it succeeds or not, it all depends on this. Clenching his teeth, he quickly closed his eyes and concentrated. In the demonic beast residence, the demonic beast refining cauldron began to rotate at a constant speed. At the same time, a strange devouring force filled his body, swallowing the surrounding spiritual qi into his body and into the cauldron. He was underground, so what he absorbed was earth qi. But when he entered the demonic beast residence and was refined by the demonic beast refining cauldron, it turned into drops of demonic liquid in the blink of an eye and fell into the cauldron, causing his cultivation base to slowly approach the peak. He had never tried to form a demonic meridian before, so he had to be careful. Therefore, he intended to raise his cultivation base to the peak before starting. Time slowly passed in this silent cultivation. In the blink of an eye, 6 hours had quietly passed. Looking at the cauldron again, he saw that the black liquid had filled up a third of the cauldron. All of his essence, energy, and spirit had been raised to the peak. All right, I can begin. Di Shitian took a deep breath. His mind became incomparably firm. With a thought, he saw the demonic beast refining cauldron in the demonic beast residence tremble violently. Then, it began to rotate at an unbelievable speed. Boom, boom, boom. The demonic qi in the cauldron was flung out by the rapid rotation. Once it was out, it immediately lost its previous gentleness and became incomparably violent. Like a turbulent black wave, it surged out of the demonic beast residence, rushed out of the heart, and in the blink of an eye, rushed into the meridian that ran from the head to the tail of his body. With this rush, a painful groan immediately came out from Di Shitian's nose. A heart-piercing pain was simply like a tide, instantly spreading crazily to every nerve in his body. The terrifying pain was truly unbearable. At this moment, Di Shitian was unable to restrain himself and couldn't help but let out a painful groan. Pain, an uncontrollable pain. The demonic qi was no longer as gentle as before. It rushed into the meridian, and like an incomparably sharp blade, it destroyed the meridian from the head to the tail inch by inch. Yes, it was destruction. And this destruction was too thorough. Every inch it pushed forward, that inch of meridian was completely pulverized by the demonic qi. The meridian was pulverized inch by inch into countless fragments, which were wrapped up by the demonic qi and continued to rush forward. Everywhere it went, the meridian would definitely be pulverized. Then, it would be sucked into the demonic qi. The meridians in the body led the circulation of qi and blood in a living being's body. The meridians and the flesh around the body could be said to be connected to the meridians and connected to every inch of the nerves. How painful would it be if the meridians were broken and shattered? One could imagine it with a little bit of imagination. Just like in the secular world, there was a saying in the Jianghu. If you want to cripple someone's martial arts, first, you have to break the person's dantian. Second, you have to break the person's meridian. Because the meridian was broken, it meant that the person would not be able to circulate and would directly become a powerless person. A person could walk because of the meridian. Without the meridian, a person would be like a pile of mud, forever unable to stand up. This showed how important the meridian was. Now, Sakura was breaking his own meridians inch by inch and shattering them. Such an action, if spoken of, was simply shocking. Even the most courageous person might not be able to make such a determination. Pulverize, pulverize, pulverize. Today, I will break the meridian and build the demonic meridian. How can mere pain stop my conviction? From the pores all over Sakura's body, beads of sweat dripped down like rain. In the blink of an eye, the soil beneath him was soaked wet. His body kept trembling. Obviously, he was in extreme pain. But the more pain he was in, the more firm Di Shitian's conviction became. A resolute thought of not giving up until the demonic meridian was formed emerged in his mind. This process of pulverizing lasted for a full hour. When the meridian connecting his head to his tail was completely pulverized by the demonic qi, he did not hesitate and shouted, "Withdraw." The pulverized meridian turned into fragments and was wrapped in the demonic qi. With a thought, the demonic qi immediately rampaged through the body, rushing back into the heart and into the demon mansion. The demon mansion was the foundation of demonic cultivation. It was very mysterious, just like the purple mansion formed in the dantian of a cultivator. As soon as the demonic qi entered, the demon refining cauldron in the center of the demon mansion immediately emitted a strong suction force, sucking the demonic qi into the cauldron. After entering the cauldron, The demonic chi naturally turned into demonic liquid and fell to the bottom of the cauldron. The pulverized meridian floated in the middle of the cauldron. The meridian was sparkling like jade, broken into pieces like jade foam. Demon refining cauldron, temper my meridian. Merge into one. The jade-colored demon refining cauldron shook violently. Without warning, a black flame appeared in the cauldron. The flame danced, emitting a demonic aura. This was the demonic fire in Di Shitian's body. When cultivators reached foundation establishment, they could emit true fire. This fire wasn't very strong, and it wasn't the samadhi true fire of a nascent soul cultivator. However, it could be used to refine weapons and pills. Worldly items would be destroyed with a single burn. As for the demon clan, when they reached demonic beast level, they could also emit demonic fire. This demonic fire wasn't something that could be born just by anyone. It depended on one's foundation and talent. Di Shitian had opened up a heaven-grade demon mansion and emitted demonic fire. There was no problem at all. As soon as the demonic fire appeared in the cauldron, it began to temper the pulverized meridian. Under the tempering of the demonic fire, these meridian fragments began to change. One by one, they melted mysteriously and turned into drops of jade-colored liquid. These drops of liquid were originally unrelated, but when they came into contact with each other, they immediately fused together and gathered together. Slowly, another half an hour passed. The meridian wasn't difficult to refine. After a period of time, the entire meridian had fused under the tempering of the demonic fire and turned into a sparkling jade liquid. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed that the jade liquid was formed from meridians. Shattering veins was the first step, tempering veins was the second step, and the third step was the most crucial step. The main character is about to undergo a major reversal. Brothers, throw me a few tickets to stimulate my inspiration. Chapter 158. Smashing veins was to break one's original meridians. Tempering veins was to extract the essence of one's meridians and remove all the impurities in the meridians, making them pure. Looking at the liquid now, it was crystal clear, like the most perfect jade in the world. The whole body of the liquid was flowing with jade light, looking extremely clear. However, these two steps were only the prerequisites of shaping veins, the most basic part. The real key was the third step, which was called transforming veins. Transforming veins was to merge one's own demonic spirit with the liquid formed by the meridians, so that the liquid itself would have demonic power. This was similar to turning one's meridians into energy. However, transforming veins was not to completely turn one's meridians into energy, but to let the meridians have the same attribute as demonic spirit. After the demonic veins were formed, the demonic spirit would not only move faster, but it would also absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and absorb the essence of the sun and moon at a faster speed. The demonic veins would also be tougher. Tougher, able to withstand the circulation of a larger amount of demonic spirit. Most importantly, every time the demonic spirit circulated, the demonic veins would automatically absorb some demonic spirit and merge it with one's meridians to strengthen the meridians. In this way, the demonic veins would become stronger and stronger, improving along with one's cultivation. There would be endless benefits in the future. Therefore, this step was very important. Whether one could perfectly merge the demonic spirit with the meridians, and how much could be merged, was an important factor that determined the final potential of the demonic veins. This stage was also a test of one's cultivation. This was because to merge the demonic spirit with the meridians, one had to rely on the demonic fire. The demonic fire could continue to exist because of one's own demonic spirit. Therefore, the depth of the demonic spirit and how long the demonic fire could last were very important questions. Okay, the strength of the demonic veins and the pain of my meridians shattering veins will all depend on this. Sakra's heart froze, and he took a deep breath. He knew the importance of this moment, so he didn't hesitate. His mind moved, and suddenly, the demonic chi in the cauldron suddenly rushed up like a fountain, turning into a black line of water, and rushed towards the jade-colored liquid that was spinning above the demonic fire, like a heavenly river rushing towards the stars. If nothing unexpected happened, the demonic chi would fuse with the jade liquid. After some refinement, it would successfully transform into a demonic vein. Soon. Nothing will happen. Di Shitian was confident in his heart as he watched everything nervously. However, what he was afraid of really did happen. Just as the demonic chi was about to enter the jade liquid, a crisp sound of a zither suddenly rang out in an inconceivable manner. Ding! As the sound of the zither rang out, a sound wave rushed into the demon refining cauldron like water ripples, colliding heavily with the water line formed by the demonic essence. With a muffled bang, the water line collapsed on the spot, turning into countless water droplets that fell into the cauldron. The perfect scene that was about to merge was almost instantly ruined. How could this be? Why is the Seven Sins demonic zither here at this time? Sakura was so shocked that he almost jumped up on the spot. No matter how much he thought about it, he never thought that Yarou Qin, who had been quietly absorbing the power of desire in the demon palace, would suddenly interfere at this time. While he was shocked, he was also secretly bewildered. He already knew that the peerless jade embryo that was refined into the demonic zither seemed to have a strange spirituality. It would often suddenly run out to save his life at a critical moment. Now that it had been refined into a demonic zither, that spirituality was equivalent to the spirituality that the Seven Sins demonic zither had. He never thought that the demonic zither would cause trouble at this time. However, there was nothing he could do other than smile bitterly. He sighed to himself, forget it. If the first time doesn't work, I'll try again. Anyway, it's just pouring the demonic essence into the jade liquid. It's not a big problem even if it gets knocked down. I'll just do it again. He steadied his chi and focused his mind. He continued to pull out a stream of demonic chi from the cauldron. Once again, he rushed towards the jade liquid floating above the demonic flame. This time, he wanted to be faster. With a thought, a black water column shot straight up. It rushed up to the jade liquid as fast as lightning. Ding dong! However, just as the demonic essence was about to converge with the jade liquid, the Seven Sins demonic zither once again made a crisp sound. A sound wave blasted into the demonic essence. Suddenly, the situation was reversed. The demonic essence collapsed on the spot under the impact of the sound wave. It fell back into the cauldron. When Di Shitian saw this scene, his heart suddenly tightened. If the first time was an accident, then the second time would definitely not be an accident. But it could not be repeated. If it happened twice in a row, then there must be a reason behind it. The Seven Sins demonic zither is my natal demonic artifact. I am one with it. There's no distinction between us. Why would it stop me from fusing the demonic essence into the jade liquid twice in a row to create a demonic vein? Could it be that there's something strange about it? Or is it something I don't know? Di Shitian was an extremely intelligent person. In his previous life, he had the reputation of being a genius. Now, he was no exception. In his mind, he almost instantly realized that perhaps in the process, he had really overlooked something. Or, was the Seven Sins demonic zither trying to tell him something? After all, the demonic zither had spirituality. It could determine what was good for it. There must be a reason for stopping it now. With this thought, he immediately put his mind on the Seven Sins demonic zither. This perception made him secretly surprised. As soon as he put his mind on the demonic zither, he immediately noticed that in the demonic zither, the power of desire that he had been absorbing was fluctuating violently. It was like a roaring river, faintly emitting an aura of excitement. The entire jade zither emitted a demonic jade light. In the jade zither, there was a faint mysterious power. It was as if the demonic zither itself was transmitting something to Di Shitian. The power of desire in the jade zither actually fluctuated so much. This seems to be something that has never happened before. Could it be that it's because I'm building the demonic vein that it caused them to change? Di Shitian secretly pondered. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Unknowingly, a light flashed through his mind. He thought with some surprise, could it be that the Seven Sins demonic zither shattering my demonic spirit has something to do with the power of desire? With this thought, his heart was somewhat bewildered. Desire, 7 emotions and 6 desires. These words repeatedly rolled in Di Shitian's mind. After all, he was extremely intelligent. A possibility suddenly appeared in his mind. As soon as this possibility appeared, he was stunned on the spot. Could it be that the seven sins demonic zither wants me to integrate the power of desire into the demonic vein? How is this possible? The power of desire was formed from the desires in the hearts of countless living beings in the world. The power of the 7 emotions and 6 desires in their hearts was almost endless. However, it was also the most evil thing in the world. If a person was contaminated with the power of desire too much, they would be eroded by the endless desire and become an evil demon that would do anything to achieve their desires. This kind of power was powerful and could be said to be the most mystical kind of power. At that time, Sakura had thought about whether there was a way for him to absorb the power of desire of the 7 emotions and 6 desires for cultivation. However, after pondering for a long time, he still couldn't find a concrete way and was still exploring all along. The demonic vein was extremely important to a demon. There could not be the slightest bit of carelessness. If the power of the 7 emotions and 6 desires were integrated with the demonic vein, what would happen? Not to mention now, even in the ancient times, absolutely no one could imagine it. Even the great divines of the demon race might not dare to try such a thing. If it was not done well, they might be driven crazy by their endless desires. Should he try to integrate the power of desire into the demonic vein? For a moment, Sakura began to hesitate left and right, unable to harden his heart to make a decision. If he could really fuse with the power of desire, he was afraid that he might really find a path that could absorb the power of desire that filled the heaven and earth. Perhaps in the future, he might be able to walk out a path that was different from the others. But whether this would succeed, and what would happen after it succeeded. However, he had no confidence in all of this. After all, this was a decision that would affect his life. He could not make a decision immediately. This situation lasted for half a cup of tea's time. The demonic flame in the cauldron had already purified the impurities in the jade liquid. He could not wait any longer. If he waited any longer, the demonic flame would burn the jade liquid itself. If the jade liquid was burned dry, then there would be a big problem. TMPH, the Tiger Raw technique can only help me cultivate to the core formation stage at most, and it is not a top technique. If I want to walk on a different path from others, I will guide the power of desire into my body today and see if I can open up a path that belongs to me. My life is in my own hands. 7 sins demonic zither, help me. At this time, he could not hesitate any longer. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He felt that this might be a huge turning point for his future path. He could not help but go crazy. He made a decision without any hesitation. With a thought, he integrated it into the 7 sins demonic zither and drove the power of desire out of the zither. However, he did not lose his mind because of this. When he drove it, among the 7 emotions and 6 desires, he only extracted one power, the power of sorrow. Ding dong! The 7 sins demonic zither seemed to be quite excited. The strings of the zither gently pulsed, and a dark power of desire was easily extracted from the zither. It quickly rushed into the cauldron and quickly poured into the jade liquid above the demonic flame. Immediately, the originally pure jade-like liquid began to rapidly turn dark at a speed visible to the naked eye. Swoosh! The demonic vitality in the cauldron also rushed up, turning into a line of water and rushed in. This time, the 7 sins demonic zither did not stop it. For a moment, the jade liquid was as black as ink. It was mysterious. Demonic flame burns the sky, refine the demonic vein for me. The demonic flame in the cauldron burned fiercely, constantly burning the black liquid above. No one knew what would happen when the power of desire was integrated into the demonic vein. Time slowly began to pass. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidien.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 159. Time would never stop for a single person. It would only silently move forward. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had quietly passed by Wn Sheng since he entered the Zither realm. Bang, bang, bang. There were all kinds of trees everywhere in the Zither realm. Most of them could be made into musical instruments, such as pipa, purple bamboo, and so on. They were all different and varied, but one thing was that almost all of the species here were good materials for making musical instruments. It could be seen that the Zither realm was worthy of being called the Zither realm. It really had a meaning. At this moment, sword light shot out in all directions in this mountain forest. Amidst the rumbling sounds, ancient trees that had been growing for an unknown number of years were cut into pieces by the sword light. There were also many ancient trees that were incomparably tough, and the sword light couldn't instantly cut through them. Behind the sword light, there was a blood-red cloud that was incomparably dense, and emitted an endless stench of blood as it whistled through the air. The sword light cut through the blood-red cloud, but it only caused the cloud to roll a few times before it swallowed up the sword light. The things that were enveloped by the blood-red cloud withered one after another, as if all of their vitality had been sucked out. It was a terrifying sight. TSK, you're just a mere rogue cultivator. Under this young master's blood cloud banner, you want to escape from the palm of my hand? What a joke. If you know what's good for you, quickly stop and hand over the artifact embryo in your hand. Perhaps I'll leave your corpse intact. Otherwise, when I catch up to you, I'll directly refine you and your soul into my precious banner. There are some things that you can't covet. In the blood-red cloud, a young man in blood-red clothes had a strange smile on his face. He waved a mysterious banner in his hand. This banner could be described as evil and awe-inspiring. It was blood-red all over, as if it had been repeatedly soaked in blood. On the banner, there was a rolling blood-red cloud that was constantly rolling. It was so red that it seemed as if blood was about to drip out. It was really terrifying. In the blood-red cloud, there were faint blood-red skulls that were moving up and down malevolently. They let out strange cries, and their empty eyes revealed a faint blood-red light. The entire banner had a layer of terrifying evil energy rolling out. It made people feel as if their souls were about to leave their bodies with a single glance. With a casual wave, the blood-red cloud rolled out. It was obvious that this was definitely an evil artifact of the evil path. It was an evil weapon that devoured people's blood essence and souls. Its name was the Blood Cloud Banner, and it was extremely powerful. When it was waved, a blood cloud would appear. Not only could it protect the body, once it pounced on the enemy, it would immediately corrode the enemy's body. The evil souls inside would rush forward, and in an instant, the person would be eaten until not even their bones would be left. Legend has it that this banner was refined using the blood essence of an unborn baby in a pregnant woman's body using various cruel secret techniques. It was the most powerful magic artifact of the Blood Cloud clan's disciples, and only the elite disciples knew how to forge it. It was said that when a magic artifact had become a magic treasure, the blood clouds it produced would be able to cover the heavens and cover the earth, possessing boundless power. It had always been nurtured as a life-bound Dharma artifact. It was unknown how much blood essence and souls had been devoured by this staff. From the looks of it, it was probably already a high-grade or top-grade magic tool. Its might was extremely terrifying. Pooh! Your Blood Cloud clan is truly despicable and shameless. Are you really not afraid that someone will expose your filthy actions in the Zither domain? If the Qin family were to know of this, they would definitely not forgive you. If you want the artifact embryo in my hands, why don't you go fight those weird demonic souls yourself? Even if I die today, I won't give it to you. Within the sword light ahead was shockingly a thin and weak man. This youth's face carried traces of grief and indignation. From the looks of it, he would definitely not hand it over. Beneath his feet was a golden flying sword, and in his hands was a similar flying sword. They flew up and down, emitting streaks of sword light. As they fled, they unceasingly slashed towards the blood-red cloud behind them. Looking at this thin and weak cultivator's cultivation base, he was actually at the late Qi refinement stage, only a step away from foundation establishment. His clothes were tattered, and it could be seen that he was in a rather wretched state. The one chasing closely behind him was none other than the Blood Cloud clan's young lord, Shui Ini. At this moment, his face was filled with savagery, his gaze bloodthirsty. Young lord, he won't be able to escape. Just as they were fleeing, they saw two blood-red clouds suddenly appear in front of them. Those were Shue Die and Shue Er. They didn't chase together, so they had taken a detour to the front. He stood in front of the skinny man, blocking his escape route on the spot. Together with Shue Ini behind them, the three of them had already surrounded the thin and weak man. Seeing this, a resolute expression appeared on the thin and weak man's face. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to escape this time, he could only land his swordlight on an empty space, hatefully glaring at the three of them. Today, I'll fight you to the death. Even if I die, I won't let you have an easy time. Dual swords flying together, sword-slaying flood dragon. With a shout, the thin and weak man didn't hesitate in the slightest. There was no longer any hope in his heart. His eyes emitted a deranged expression, and his hands formed a sword art, displaying his strongest sword art without hesitation. All the spiritual energy in his body poured into the dual swords without reservation. Wung wung. The two golden flying swords shuddered as they received the massive amount of spiritual energy, emitting intense swordlight that rapidly intertwined with each other. Golden light flickered, and a pair of golden scissors silently appeared, instantly enlarging. The scissors turned, not cutting towards Shue Ini, but towards Shue Die on the left. This scissors was extremely powerful, having the aura of wanting to cut through the heavens. Carrying a golden light, it was incomparably fast, arriving before Shue Die in an instant, the scissors cutting into the blood-red clouds beside him. Catcher! A light sound rang out. This strike was virtually the full power of the thin and weak man. When a late chi refinement cultivator who was only a step away from foundation establishment became vicious, it was rather frightening. Under the scissors, the golden light twisted, and the sticky blood-red clouds were actually cut into two. Shue Die clearly hadn't expected such a thing to happen. His body within the blood-red clouds only had time to turn sideways, and his left arm was cut off. You're courting death. Shue Ini licked his lips, emitting a bloodthirsty light. The blood cloud banner in his hand spun, and the blood-red clouds that filled the sky immediately rushed towards the thin and weak man. A series of miserable screams rang out from within the blood-red clouds. In the blink of an eye, there was no sound. Crash! The blood cloud banner rolled, and the blood-red clouds were sucked into the banner like a whale sucking in water. Looking at the ground, not even the thin and weak man's corpse was left behind. It was clear that after the blood cloud banner swallowed him, the blood-red clouds inside grew even larger, and their power increased by a large margin. On the ground, only two golden flying swords and a storage pouch were left. Shue Ini walked forward and took the storage pouch in his hand. With a swipe of his hand, he broke the seal, and with a flash of light, a purple bamboo flute with overwhelming spiritual energy appeared in his hand. He sneered, "You really overestimate yourself. A mere rogue cultivator wants to possess such a treasure. Only I, Shue Ini, am worthy of possessing such a precious artifact embryo." With that, he turned to look at Shue Die. Seeing his severed arm, he frowned slightly. "Shue Die, how are your injuries? Can you continue to fight?" Perhaps the first sentence of concern was just in passing, but the second sentence was his true meaning. "Don't worry, young master. As long as this subordinate returns to the sect, my arm will recover. Even if I fight now, it won't be a problem. I definitely won't delay young master from collecting such an artifact embryo," Shue Die said without hesitation. "That's right, young master. The Zither realm is truly mysterious. Any one of the artifact embryos here are rare treasures outside. As long as you refine it into a formation, it'll become a top-notch magic artifact. It's too precious. If you take it back, it'll definitely stabilize young master's position in the sect," Shue cried out excitedly. Shue Ini only nodded slightly. A trace of darkness appeared on his face. "Although I've found these treasures, I don't know where that Di Shitian brat is hiding. After searching for so many days, I still haven't found a trace of him. Mate, even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground, this young master will dig him out." He really hadn't forgotten about Di Shitian for even a moment. He had a vengeful temperament. Although it was only because of a single pill art in the Zither Valley, it had already caused him to hold a grudge and want to kill him. As soon as he entered the Zither realm, he constantly searched for Di Shitian's figure, wanting to kill him. His intentions could only be described as vicious and ruthless. Speaking of which, in these past few days in the Zither realm, the situation that Di Shetien had encountered before was also encountered by many cultivators. These strange existences, upon discovering an outsider, would immediately launch an attack without hesitation, and were bound to kill the outsider. In the instant that they entered, who knew how many cultivators with slightly weaker cultivations died from this sudden attack? However, after killing them, their bodies would mysteriously dissipate and turn into essence chi that would rush into their dharma treasures and fall to the ground. They were all different. Some used flutes as dharma treasures, some used zithers as dharma treasures. Without exception, these dharma treasures were all dharma treasures. High-quality dharma treasures could be refined into powerful dharma treasures at any time. Immediately, in the Zither realm, they didn't find the Lu Chi Zither. Instead, the cultivators fought and killed each other over these precious embryos. All kinds of fighting were extremely fierce, and the fight just now was only one of many. Young master, we're doing our best to search, but the Zither realm is too big. It's also shrouded in fog, so we can't clearly find it, Xue Die said calmly. Rumble. At this moment, the ground under their feet suddenly trembled violently. It was as if there was an earthquake, and the rumbling continued. Cracks appeared on the ground like a spiderweb, and as soon as they appeared, they immediately spread in all directions. From the cracks under the ground, traces of pitch-black demonic chi crazily spewed out. The huge rocks in the surroundings were all shattered into pieces. A terrifying aura spread out like a tide, as if there was a terrifying ferocious beast breaking free from its shackles and charging out of the ground. When Xue Yinyi and the other two saw this, they all looked at each other in dismay. To be continued. If you want to know what happened after this, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 160. Not good, young master. Something is coming out from underground. Get out of the way quickly. Xue Die's expression changed. He was a core formation cultivator. Although his cultivation level was only at the early stage of the core formation realm and he wasn't as sturdy as those core formation cultivators who had advanced step by step, he was still a core formation cultivator. Earlier, he had been careless and lost one of his arms to that thin cultivator's sudden attack. However, he still had the keen spiritual sense of a core formation cultivator. Beneath the ground, he keenly sensed that there seemed to be a terrifying force struggling to break free from the shackles of the earth. This force was no less powerful than him. Furthermore, within this force, there was an extremely dense demonic chi, as well as a strange grief and inexplicable sadness. No matter what it was, Xue Die didn't think it was anything simple. Without even thinking, his expression changed as he shouted at Xue Yinyi. The blood cloud around him instantly gathered. Xue Die's immortal treasure was not the blood cloud banner, but the 9 clouds heaven shroud. The cloud was a blood cloud, but the shroud was a transparent shroud like an ancient bell. This shroud wasn't just for protection, it could also be used against enemies. Once an enemy was trapped within the shroud, it could be used to refine the enemy within. It was extremely powerful. Earlier, he saw that the skinny cultivator was only at the late chi refinement stage. He didn't think that the skinny cultivator would be able to cause any trouble, so he didn't take it out. It was because of this that he lost an arm due to his carelessness. Now that he saw this, he took out his 9 clouds heaven shroud without hesitation. A transparent shroud appeared in his hand. He held it in his palm and examined it carefully. This shroud was in the shape of a bell and was crystal clear. There were 9 blood-red clouds floating on it. Vaguely, there seemed to be a mysterious connection between the 9 clouds. It possessed great power. Xue Tu quickly arrived beside Xue Yinyi and stood in front of him. He also took out a blood cloud banner similar to the one Xue Yinyi had. However, the banner in Xue Tu's hands was much weaker than Xue Yinyi's. Not only did the number of blood-red clouds within the banner fall short, even the density of the blood-red color was far inferior. Xue Yinyi's was a supreme-grade magic tool, while his was only a mid-grade magic tool that was close to a high-grade one. Of course, their power was incomparable. The 3 of them were shocked by the change in front of them. They used the blood cloud to wrap around themselves. They didn't dare to stay on the ground and quickly flew into the air. They floated in the air, but didn't leave immediately. Instead, they looked curiously at the violent change in the ground. He couldn't help but guess in his heart. Was there some powerful magic treasure that had appeared underground? With this thought in mind, he naturally didn't want to leave. Rumble. More and more cracks appeared on the ground, spreading outwards at a speed visible to the naked eye. Strands of black gas emerged from the ground at an even faster rate. Strangely, the black gas seemed to carry an endless sense of sorrow. Grieving for the heavens, grieving for the earth, grieving for all living things. The moment this sadness appeared, it spread out in all directions uncontrollably. Everyone who sensed this sadness, regardless of whether they were humans or plants that seemed to have no sentience, could not help but feel the same sadness. The plants let out a sad aura. For a moment, the surrounding heaven and earth seemed to darken. Sad. Sad for an unfilial son. Sad for an unvirtuous wife. Sad for an unfinished country. Sad. All things in the world are sad. A desolate, sorrowful voice came from underground. The voice seemed to contain all the sorrowful things in the world. The sadness was boundless and swept through heaven and earth. Rumble. Amidst the terrifying roar, the already cracked ground suddenly exploded. Countless rocks flew wildly in all directions, covering the sky and covering the earth. It was as if a huge volcano had suddenly erupted. The scene was terrifying. Just as the countless rocks flew out, a pitch-black figure shrouded in endless sorrow suddenly jumped out from underground. Standing in the midst of the flying rocks, his aura was even more sorrowful. A sense of sorrow seeped out from his body. Anyone who saw him couldn't help but feel the same way, evoking the endless sorrow in their hearts. Ha ha. Di Shitian, you're Di Shitian. Shui Ini was also affected by this terrifying sadness. He couldn't help but think of some sad things in the past. His nose felt sore, and he was about to cry. However, when he saw the appearance of the black-robed man, his whole body trembled and he came back to his senses. At the same time, a trace of viciousness flashed through his eyes. He coldly smiled and said, "I searched high and low for you, only to find you without any effort. I didn't think that after searching for you for 10 whole days, you would be hiding underground. If you had continued to hide, perhaps I really wouldn't have been able to find you. Now, you're going to die with me. Be obedient and become one of the soul essences in my precious banner." When Shui Ini saw Di Shitian, his eyes were exceptionally red. His face became abnormally ferocious. He unfolded the blood cloud banner in his hand and waved it at Di Shitian. Voila! Rolling blood clouds immediately surged out from the banner and quickly gathered into a huge blood cloud. It covered an area of about 10 zhong in size and rushed toward Di Shitian. A thick smell of blood filled the air. Within the blood cloud, countless ferocious soul essences floated up and down, letting out waves of terrifying strange cries. An awe-inspiring evil aura. Sorrow. All living things are sorrowful. Di Shitian's eyes were filled with an undissolvable sorrow. His body emitted a sorrowful aura. There was no spirit, only an endless sense of sorrow. It was as if, in his eyes, there was nothing else but sorrow. His entire mind was completely immersed in sorrow. Seeing the sky full of blood clouds whizzing toward him, the sorrow in his eyes became even more intense. Suddenly, a jade light flew out from his body and floated in front of him. It was a jade zither full of demonic light. The jade zither emitted traces of sorrowful aura. Ding dong! Ding dong! At this time, Di Shitian seemed to be in a strange state. He was completely immersed in sorrow. His own consciousness seemed to have been replaced by this sorrow. He saw Shui Ini in front of him, but he didn't recognize them. He only felt the attack whistling toward him and instinctively placed his hands on the 7 sins demonic zither in front of him. He had never learned the art of the zither before. After placing his fingers on the strings, his 10 fingers moved as smoothly as flowing water as they moved swiftly across the 9 strings. This stroke did not seem to have a melody, but when the sounds of the zither came out continuously and connected together, they strangely formed a melody. The melody did not have a name, but it moved according to the will of the heart. The endless sorrow from Sakura actually spread out along with the sound of the zither, causing the sound of the zither to have a charm and a unique state of mind. A kind of sorrowful sound of the zither rang out. This was a sad song. Hualala. A gentle wind blew on the ground. The wind was also sorrowful. This wind seemed to be abnormally gentle, but when it blew against the blood clouds, the sadness contained in the wind seemed to possess an inconceivable power. It forcibly blocked the blood clouds that were whistling towards them. Not only that, it even seemed to want to push the blood clouds back. Sorrowful heaven, sorrowful earth, sorrowful immortals, sorrowful gods, sorrowful humans, sorrowful ghosts, and sorrowful demons. Di Shitian's bleak voice came out of his mouth. The wind was blowing. It was crying. In the sky, a light drizzle fell. The sky was crying. The grass, trees, earth, and stones all dimmed. Everything on earth was sorrowful. Using his own sorrow to drive the zither music turned into his heart, stirring heaven and earth were sorrowful. No, it can't be like this. Why am I suddenly so sorrowful? No, this isn't my heart at all. Why is it like this? Shue Ini wiped his hand, and his hand was covered in tears. He couldn't help but be shocked. He knew very well that he had never wanted to cry or be sorrowful. However, when he heard the zither music, an inexplicable sense of uncontrollable sorrow welled up within him. He couldn't help but want to cry. It was as if in this moment, his body was completely out of his control. It was so strange that when he looked at Di Shitian, it was as if he were looking at a ghost. He had never imagined that such an extremely strange thing could happen to him in this world. Junior Sect Master, this zither music is too terrifying. I don't know why, but I'm so sorrowful that I want to kill myself. Blood 2's eyes were filled with shock and terror. The thing he didn't want to die the most was clearly death, but now, for some inexplicable reason, he was feeling so sorrowful that he wanted to kill himself and end his own life. Terrifying, too terrifying. Junior Sect Master, let's get out of here quickly, Blood 2 said in a trembling voice. Shue Da said with a trembling voice. He didn't know what would happen if he continued to stay here. No, I can't leave at all. Shue Ini's face was filled with bitterness. He wanted to leave, but his body was rooted to the spot, and he didn't want to move. Sorrow, sorrow, sorrow. These three sorrowful words came out of Di Shitian's mouth one after another. At this moment, he had been completely dominated by the desire to be sorrowful, and there was only sorrow in his heart. As these three sorrowful words came out of his mouth, the zither music under his hand became even more sorrowful. It reached a peak, and everything in the surroundings was enveloped in this sorrowful intent. The mountains and rocks shattered on their own, and the vitality of the grass and trees gradually disappeared. They had actually extinguished their own vitality in this sorrowful situation, leaving behind only a sorrowful aura. After 3 consecutive screams, Shue Ini and the other 2 involuntarily reached out their hands and slapped their own heads. Their hands contained powerful true essence, so their heads were not made of steel. They were smashed into pieces on the spot. 3 lives were lost in an instant, and one of them was even a core formation cultivator. It could be imagined that Di Shitian's current state was truly mysterious and unfathomable. Dead. Shue Ini and the other 2 had died by his hands in such a mysterious way. No, it should be said that he died because of his own grief. However, at the moment of Shue Ini's death, the strange jade pendant that he had been wearing around his neck seemed to have entered a bloody shadow. Then, the jade pendant emitted a gentle jade light and broke free. It turned into a white light and quickly fled far away from this strange place. In the blink of an eye, he rushed to an illusory door and plunged in without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared. It was as if what had just happened had never happened. The jade pendant rushed out of the illusory door and directly left the realm of the zither. It also silently escaped into the distance. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com and read more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 161. Sad. 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 The sound of the zither stopped, and the purple king mark on Di Shitien's forehead naturally shot out a beam of purple light, which fell on Xue Yini and the other two. The strange thing was that only 2 of the 3 people's souls were taken out of the corpses and absorbed into the king mark. The 3 corpses were not spared, and were instinctively swallowed into the demon-refining cauldron. The 7 sins demonic zither returned to his body. However, Di Shitien's eyes were still filled with sorrow, and his body exuded endless sorrow. He walked forward step by step unconsciously, and sighed 3 times. Like a cuckoo weeping blood, he walked without direction, as if he was just walking casually, and everywhere he walked, as long as it was within 10 meters of him. They were all eroded by this extremely dense sorrow, and they all exuded the same sorrowful aura. Wherever he walked, the sorrowful aura would spread. Di Shitien's own mind seemed to have been lost and eroded. Speaking of which, this had to start from when he decided to integrate the power of desire of the 7 emotions and 6 desires into the demon vein. To be honest, his decision was a bit rash. One must know that the 7 emotions and 6 desires were an invisible force emitted by all living things in the world because they had consciousness and emotions. It could be said to be an obsession, or a desire. Even the most powerful great divines would never be willing to touch such a thing, because it was too evil and too mysterious. The power of desire was the obsession of countless people. Once controlled by the obsession, the consequences would be immeasurable and incomparably terrifying. The slightest mistake would cause one to be confused by the boundless desire, dominated by the obsession, and lose one's consciousness. Who knows, he might sink into oblivion forever, never to wake up again. In the past, it wasn't that there weren't people like Sakura, who set their sights on the boundless power of desire. It was just that these people had basically all sunk into their desires. Otherwise, they would have become paranoid devils. Almost none of them had a good ending. When Di Shitian made up his mind, he guessed that there might be danger, so he did not integrate the 7 emotions and 6 desires, and only extracted the power of sorrow to fuse with the demon vein. In the beginning, it was indeed fine. Everything was normal. Shattering veins, tempering veins, transforming veins, and finally, shaping veins. Every step was frightening but not dangerous. The meridian transformation was to fuse the power of sorrow and the demonic meridian together, making them indistinguishable from each other. The meridian would be formed from the power of sorrow. When everything was done, the demonic vein that was formed turned into a demonic pitch-black color. These demonic veins were formed from solidified liquid. They were extremely slender and tough. After it was formed, Di Shitian followed the instructions of the bloodline inheritance and sent the demonic vein out of the demon residence. One end was directly connected to the heart, and the other end was connected to the demon residence, so that the demon residence and the demonic vein were closely connected. Then, the demonic vein followed its original position, from the head to the tail, and then back to the heart, the demon residence. Just like that, the first demonic vein could be said to have been formed. However, how could it be so easy to form a demonic vein with the power of desire? Almost as soon as the demonic vein passed through the entire body and fused with the demonic body. The demonic vein actually connected with the power of desire in the heavens and earth. The power of sorrow of the 7 emotions and 6 desires suddenly surged into his body. The hidden power of sorrow in the demonic vein was triggered and exploded, rushing to his heart. Terrifying, huge, and mysterious. Even with Di Shitian's mind, under this mysterious power of sorrow, he did not have the slightest ability to resist. He was immediately immersed in this state of sorrow, or rather, in his obsession with desire. His mind was almost irresistibly lost in it, sinking into it. And at that time, it was precisely when Xue Yini and the others arrived that he reacted, breaking out of the ground. Furthermore, this feeling of sorrow caused Xue Yini and the others to involuntarily end their own lives. However, the problem now was that Di Shitian had already lost himself in the feeling of sorrow. This feeling of sorrow was an obsession that had existed for millions of years, or perhaps it could be said that it had always existed since ancient times. It gathered the sorrow in the hearts of countless living beings. Breaking through it might bring about inconceivable benefits, but if not, from today onwards, he would remain in this state. This was the hidden danger of fusing the power of desire into the demonic vein. Fortunately, he had only fused with one emotion. Otherwise, if he had fused with all 7 emotions and 6 desires, the current situation would not have occurred. Instead, his mind would have been crushed by the countless emotions and 6 desires, and he would have completely died. Outside the zither domain, Qin Xian glanced at Shui Yin's piece of jade as it flashed through the air like lightning. His face could not help but change as he said, "It seems that an accident has happened to someone important in the zither realm." His expression was very serious. From the moment he saw the piece of jade, he understood what had happened. He recognized that piece of jade. It was refined from hidden god jade, and it was extremely capable of nourishing the mind and resisting external devils. During times of danger, it was even capable of drawing one's primordial soul into it so that it wouldn't be harmed. Such a good thing could be said to be a treasure that countless people in the cultivation world dreamed of. At a critical moment, it could temporarily save one's life. Unfortunately, good things were never plentiful. Only when they were rare could they show their preciousness. This sentence had always been a saying of wisdom. It was not wrong at all. The hidden divine jade was quite difficult to find in the cultivation world. It was extremely rare and could only be found in large jade mines or in some icy place. It was extremely rare. If one found a piece, they would all hide it like a treasure. To be able to possess such a treasure, the person who had just encountered misfortune was definitely not an ordinary person. "Father, will there be any problems like this?" Kotomi could not help but frown slightly. She pursed her lips and asked softly, "No need to worry. When we spread the news of the groom search, we had already stated that once one enters the Guqin realm, life and death will be up to fate and one's own ability. Only those who are willing can come to our Guqin Melody Valley. Since they have come, they must know about this. No matter what happens, they cannot blame us. Even if something happens, we cannot be blamed on our Qin family." Qin Xian had long expected such a thing to happen and had prepared in advance. This way, even if something happened, the people behind these youths would not blame the Qin family. "Yes, your father is right. The Guqin realm is originally full of danger. The Guqin realm's demonic spirits are all very powerful. Even if our Qin family members enter, they will not show mercy. If we encounter them, it will be a life and death battle. Only by defeating them can we obtain the magic artifact that will accompany us for life. As for other people, if they want to obtain the opportunity, how can there be no danger?" Madame Qin also nodded and muttered, "I wonder who will be able to find the green jade zither this time?" Kotomi raised her head and looked in the direction of the Guqin realm. Traces of reverie appeared in her eyes, as well as traces of confusion. At the same time, in a spacious mansion in the imperial capital, a tall noble girl wearing a fiery red dress and a veil on her face rushed into the mansion. Behind her, 4 maids anxiously chased after her. Bang! With a heavy sound, the door of the study was violently pushed open. The red-clothed girl unceremoniously stepped into the study. In the study, a young man in embroidered clothes was looking at the girl with a wry smile. The moment he saw her, it was as if he already knew that there would be such a result. "Royal sister, why didn't you tell me you were coming? I should have gone to welcome you," the young man in embroidered clothes said with a wry smile. "Mph, Wonwu, why didn't you tell me that something like this had happened? If I hadn't accidentally overheard your conversation today, how much longer would you have hidden this from me? Do you still treat me as your sister? Third brother actually sent people to kill you." The red-clothed girl's eyes were filled with anger. Clearly, she was very angry. The young man in embroidered clothes heard this and gently shook his head. "It has already happened. It's useless to talk about it anymore. Royal sister, don't worry. Since third brother attacked me first, as his second brother, how can I let him do as he pleases? I've already made plans for this matter." There was a trace of certainty and confidence in his expression. "What plans?" The red-clothed girl couldn't help but become curious at this moment and immediately asked. "Since he started it, don't blame me for returning the favor." A trace of determination and ruthlessness appeared on the young man's face. He said coldly, Third brother is only relying on the worship in the worship hall. I've already come into contact with those worship masters, so I won't be able to approach them at all. Since that's the case, I can only destroy them all. Let's see what else third brother can rely on. The young man in embroidered clothes was none other than Hua Wanwu, who had just returned to the capital. The red-clothed girl was China's first princess, Hua Yua. They were blood-related siblings of the same father and mother. They had always been quite close. This time, when Hua Yua heard that Hua Wanwu had been assassinated, she immediately rushed to the mansion angrily. Hua Yua said with a strange expression, "Wanwu, don't you know that those old guys in the Hall of Worship are all cultivators who are superior to ordinary people? As for the rest of the cultivators, we don't have anything that can make them want to fight against the Hall of Worship. How can you destroy them?" There was an obvious look of disbelief in her words. Hua Wanwu raised his head and looked out of the study with a trace of awe in his deep eyes. He said, "Royal sister, don't worry. As long as the person I invite is willing to do it, those so-called masters in the worship hall will be destroyed in an instant. At that time, we should really let our good brother know who the real successor of China is." He didn't know what kind of mentality he had, but he didn't say anything about Sakura. This was the biggest trump card in his heart. Other than himself, he absolutely wouldn't easily tell anyone else. Sad. 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 In the realm of the zither, sorrowful sounds reverberated in the mountain forest. Thick traces of sorrow flowed. Every sound seemed to contain endless sorrow. Listening to it, it was exceptionally terror-inducing. A figure in a black robe, shrouded in this sadness, wandered unconsciously in the mountain forest. There was nothing else on his body except for sadness. The protagonist is sad, and I am sad too. I don't know if I have offended someone, but there seems to be a person in the book review who is constantly scolding others. Damn, I don't think I have ever attacked anyone before. Sigh, when it comes to scolding others, just one comment is enough. Why do you have to post one comment after another, as if you are afraid that I will not be able to read it? Chapter 162. Wherever he went, the sorrowful aura would spread. Moreover, it could also corrode the surrounding objects, causing them to become sorrowful as well. It emitted a sense of sorrow that was the complete opposite of the original vitality. Di Shitian's mind had already been corroded by the boundless sorrow. He no longer had the slightest bit of consciousness. He could only instinctively wander around the mountain forest aimlessly as he sorrowfully spat out the word sorrow. With every word he spat out, the sorrowful aura on his body became even denser. "Brother Jing, quickly look, who is that? Could it be a foreign cultivator as well? I'm not sure. Looking at this person's behavior, it seems a bit abnormal. Could it be a madman? That's impossible. How could there be a madman in the zither realm?" Right at this moment, at a place not too far away from Sakura, two young cultivators were standing together, and they looked towards Sakura. Obviously, they were attracted by the situation of him wandering aimlessly in the mountain forest by himself, and they couldn't help but gather together and discuss in bewilderment. Obviously, they were very surprised. The fact that these two were able to persist until now in the zither realm could be said to be the cream of the crop among cultivators. Moreover, in these 10 days, they had a deeper understanding of the mysteries of the zither realm. The endless stream of strange attacks made them even more tired. The most terrifying thing was the battle between cultivators for those strange artifact embryos. These days, who knew how many people had already died from killing each other? Therefore, the strangeness of Di Shitian's body immediately attracted the attention of these two people. No matter what, the two tool embryos that we worked so hard to obtain have been snatched away. Perhaps this person in front of us has tool embryos with him. I've heard that any one of these tool embryos can be sold for tens of thousands of spirit stones. Why don't we go rob others as well? That's right. Who cares if he's crazy or not? Let's rob first. This conversation had already revealed a lot of the invisible law of the immortal cultivation world where the strong preyed on the weak. In the immortal cultivation world, there were no great principles. Whoever had the biggest fist would be the one who spoke the truth. After the discussion, The two cultivators rushed toward Di Shitian's position at the same time. They formed a sword gesture in their hands, ready to release the flying sword at any time. In the other hand, they clasped a few spirit talismans that glowed with spirit light. Everything was done smoothly, as if they were familiar with it. Unexpectedly, they were all late-stage qi refining cultivators. Sad, sad, sad. Di Shitian seemed to have reacted to the two cultivators who were pouncing towards him with ill intentions. He raised his head and glanced at them. His expression was still incomparably sorrowful as he once again softly uttered the word sorrowful. As these three words entered the ears of the two cultivators, they felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Their rapidly charging bodies strangely came to a halt. A trace of sorrow involuntarily appeared on their faces. Many sorrowful things that they had experienced in the past emerged in their minds. They unconsciously immersed themselves in these sorrowful memories. Their bodies emitted a sorrowful aura as they blankly stood in place without moving, immersed in their sorrowful state. Di Shitian didn't make any other movements. He continued to aimlessly walk forward step by step, shuttling through the mountain forest. The two cultivators didn't notice his departure at all. The scene was extremely strange. At some unknown time, a cool breeze blew past. The two cultivators trembled and woke up. They looked around and then glanced at each other. They both saw a look of horror in each other's eyes. The situation just now was truly too strange. 4 or 5 days later, this scene was also encountered by many other cultivators. For a time, there was a rumor in the Zither realm that there was a strange madman who only knew how to say the word sorrowful. Moreover, as long as someone approached him, they would inexplicably fall into a sorrowful state. It was truly strange. For a time, he was given a nickname, Madman. In the Zither realm, as long as they heard sorrowful sounds echoing, cultivators would all take a detour. They didn't want to encounter him because once they did, they would strangely feel sorrowful. Then, they would be immersed in it and lose consciousness. At that time, if they encountered an enemy, they would be dead for sure. Therefore, most of the cultivators in the Zither realm kept a respectful distance from Di Shitian. They were afraid of encountering him. In reality, as long as one's cultivation wasn't very high and one's state of mind wasn't extremely firm, they would be eroded by that sorrowful feeling. It was truly terrifying. Ding ding, ding dong, ding dong. On the 23rd day since Di Shitian and the others entered the Zither realm, they didn't know how big the Zither realm was. Moreover, the sky was shrouded in fog, making it difficult to explore clearly in a short period of time. However, someone discovered that almost all the cultivators who entered were wandering in a strange mountain forest. There were also a large number of strange demon spirits in the forest. The weak ones of these demon spirits had the terrifying attack power of a late-stage qi refinement cultivator. There were even foundation establishment cultivators and core formation cultivators. They were quite terrifying. What was even more terrifying was that many of them were gathered together. This way, it was even more difficult to deal with them. If they encountered them, it would be a battle to the death. During this period of time, countless cultivators had died in the hands of these strange demon spirits. In this cruel environment, those who survived in the end were almost all powerhouses. Everyone had undergone a fundamental transformation in this short period of time. Even their temperaments had changed to varying degrees. It could be foreseen that if they left the Zither realm, they would definitely become a generation of prodigies in the cultivation world in the future. There would be almost no problem for them to reach the core formation realm. They might even be able to break through to the nascent soul realm. Perhaps, it was even possible for them to reach a higher level. At this moment, in the Zither realm, a burst of Zither music suddenly rang out. The moment it rang out, it covered the entire Zither realm. All the living beings in the Zither realm could hear it clearly. The Zither music was melodious and seemed to contain a natural and peaceful charm. It caused the atmosphere in the Zither realm to suddenly change. It became fresh and natural. The murderous aura that all the cultivators had because of the slaughter naturally dissipated in the Zither music, causing their nervous minds to unconsciously calm down. In the forest, the demon spirits that were scattered all over the place revealed an inexplicable expression in their eyes. They all quickly rushed in the direction of the zither music. Many of the cultivators' expressions changed as they followed the zither music. At this moment, Di Shetien, who was wandering in an unknown corner, heard the zither music. The natural and peaceful power of the zither music fell on him. For some reason, the boundless sorrow that enveloped him unexpectedly dissipated a little. A trace of clarity faintly flashed in his eyes that had been filled with grief. His body suddenly stopped as he turned around and walked in the direction of the zither music. As he listened, he followed the zither music. In the zither realm, everything changed because of this mysterious zither music. Almost everyone was heading in the same direction. If one could see this scene clearly, they would find it strange. The zither realm was very big. Most of it was made up of mountains and forests. In the center of the zither realm, a huge pool appeared. This pool was very strange. First, the water in the pool was very different. Ordinary water was clear and pure. If it was a mountain spring, one could clearly see the sand and stones at the bottom. Even if it was turbid, one could still see the soil. Or perhaps it was ice-cold water that was constantly emitting cold air. Or it could be a hot spring that emitted hot air. However, the water in the pool was different from those kinds of water. The color of the water was very strange. It was a kind of seven-colored water. Light flowed through the pool as if it was a large dye vat used to dye cloth. This light was sparkling and translucent. It was very mystical and made one feel very comfortable looking at it. It was as if one was looking at some kind of seven-colored glaze or jade. It was very beautiful. It could be said to be a beautiful fantasy. In the colorful light, wisps of faint water vapor rose. This pool was next to a big mountain. The pool was at the foot of the mountain. Behind the pool was a naturally formed karst cave. If one did not look carefully, one would not notice it. However, this karst cave was separated from the forest on the opposite side by the pool. On the surface of the ancient pond, there was a shocking scene. Mysterious figures, male and female, were either sitting cross-legged or standing. They did not sink into the water, and each of them held various musical instruments in their hands. There were zithers, flutes, pipers, and so on. It looked like an exhibition of musical instruments. From time to time, there were figures dancing on the surface of the pool. They looked like phantoms. They looked very beautiful. One could not help but be immersed in it. However, there was one similarity, which was that they didn't seem to have the aura of humans at all. They didn't seem to be alive, but instead had traces of strange demonic aura. Their expressions were cold, without the slightest hint of emotion, as if they were born without emotions. It made one's hair stand on end. In the forest, along with the sound of the zither, demonic spirits followed into the pool from time to time. They vaguely covered the karst cave behind, as if guarding something. Today is that day of the year again. If there are no accidents, the zither music in the zither realm should sound again. Qin Xian looked in the direction of the zither realm. Standing in the purple bamboo forest, he sighed softly. He seemed to have known that some kind of change would happen in the zither realm. Father, why did our ancestor leave behind instructions that we are not allowed to take the things she left behind? Instead, we have to let outsiders go. Moreover, it depends on fate, Katomi said faintly. Her eyes were filled with puzzlement. Qin Xian's face turned solemn, and he said, "Shut up. Since the ancestor has made such arrangements, she naturally has her reasons. As the younger generation, we only need to follow her orders." Speaking of the ancestor, his expression became very serious. He actually scolded his beloved daughter on the spot. It was clear how important the ancestor was in his heart. Your daughter understands. Katomi also knew that she should not have such thoughts. She quickly admitted her mistake and said, 23 days have already passed. The deadline is in 7 days. I don't know if we can take the zither out this time. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 163. Whether or not we can obtain it will depend on fate. If the time comes, It means that the verdant zither will be born. If the time doesn't come, then I'm afraid this time will be an illusion and we'll have to wait for the next opportunity. After all, obtaining the verdant zither is not easy. There are several obstacles, each of which is extremely difficult. Qin Xian revealed a wry smile and sighed, let's not talk about anything else. Just the heavenly pool alone is extremely mystical and has been refined by our ancestors. It is even more incredible. In the zither realm, as long as the various trees, bamboo, jade, and other materials used to make musical instruments are placed in the pool, in a short period of time, they will condense into an artifact embryo and give birth to demonic spirits. It is not an easy task to pass by these demonic spirits. If the demonic soul can be broken by force, then even if you walk to the front of the green silk zither like this, if you're not the fated one, you won't even be able to touch it. He took a deep breath and said, therefore, whether or not you can bring it out depends on the will of the heavens and fate. If the verdant zither is born, then someone will definitely be able to bring it out. The zither realm was the forbidden ground of the Qin clan. After so many years, how could the Qin clan not understand the various mysteries of the zither realm? It was a small space created by a great technique and was extremely mysterious. Without guidance, no one would be able to enter. It could be said that if the Qin clan was in trouble at any time, they could just hide inside the zither realm and their clan wouldn't be exterminated no matter what. However, the problem was that the zither realm wasn't completely under the Qin clan's control. The demonic souls inside would kill any outsiders they encountered. They wouldn't care if you were a Qin clan disciple or not. Therefore, the Qin clan couldn't live inside. If they did, they might die at the hands of the demonic souls. When it came to demonic souls, one had to talk about the heavenly pool. The celestial pond was the strange seven-colored ancient pond in the center of the zither domain. The water in the pond was called the celestial pond demonic soul water. This water contained an inconceivable power and could fuse together with the zither domain. As long as you throw in the zither domain's wood, jade, and other materials that were used to make musical instruments, after a period of time, these materials would magically transform into weapon embryos and give birth to demonic souls. Those with strong demonic souls would have the ability to form their core, while those with weak demonic souls would have the ability to refine their qi. It all depended on the quality of the artifact embryo. Legend had it that the heavenly pool was originally more powerful, but for some reason, more than half of its power was sealed away, resulting in its current state. But even so, they could not be underestimated. In the Guqin realm, the sound of the Guqin was still clear, as if it was specially guiding the way for all those who were curious. First, it was the demon souls. In a short period of time, almost all the demon souls in the Guqin realm had gathered in the heavenly lake. The cultivator closest to the heavenly lake was also the first to arrive in front of the heavenly lake. As soon as he came out of the forest, he saw the mystical heavenly lake that was suffused with 7 colors. However, his eyes widened in an instant, almost popping out of their sockets. Deep fear appeared on his face. My ancestor, why are there so many strange demonic souls? This, I'm afraid there are no less than 1,000 or 2,000 of them. What exactly is this place? The cultivator looked ahead with a bitter expression. His body did not move at all, afraid that if he moved, he would be attacked by those demonic souls. He might have dared to attack 1 or 2 demonic souls, but now there were more than 1,000 of them. He did not have the guts to do so. He was afraid that anyone who stood in front of him would be instantly blasted into pieces. Bang, bang, bang. In the forest, a series of steady and rhythmic footsteps could be heard. It could be heard that every step that the person took was firmly on the ground. The time between each step was exactly the same. Perhaps, even the distance between each step was exactly the same. Following the sound of footsteps, a heavy aura as heavy as Mount Tai rushed towards them. In the aura, there was a strong desire to fight, with an indomitable aura. It made people feel as if they were about to suffocate, and even breathing was difficult. This was a kind of pure desire to fight. In the blink of an eye, he saw a man who was 2 meters tall. His muscles were perfectly distributed all over his body, and there was not a trace of fat on his body. Covered in a green martial artist's tight-fitting clothes, It directly set off the martial artist's perfect physique. His face was as sharp as a knife, and he was unusually determined. However, his face was covered with a beard, which made him look extremely rough. His 2 eyes were bright and full of spirit, with a hidden divine light. He only had a storage bag on his waist, and nothing else. He did not even have a weapon. He was barehanded, but he was already emitting a threatening aura. When this person walked out of the forest, he saw the heavenly lake in front of him, and the thousands of demonic souls on the heavenly lake. His pupils constricted violently, but he suddenly opened them again and laughed loudly. Good, good, good. I came to the Guqin realm to see what kind of dangers there are in the Qin family's Guqin realm. These days, I've destroyed dozens of demonic souls, and it was very satisfying. I didn't expect there to be such a large group of demonic souls here. I'll use you to train my martial skills, and I might be able to reach a higher level. I'll step into a higher realm. A strong desire to fight rose from this person's words, as if he was not afraid of these demonic souls at all. Instead, his fighting spirit was high, and a martial artist dared to challenge any expert spread out. Martial cultivators, this was a unique aura that only martial cultivators had. This person was none other than Wu Wudi, who had walked into the Guqin realm for more than 20 days. He did not come in because of Kotomi's marriage, but because he heard that there seemed to be considerable danger in the Guqin realm, so he deliberately came in. He wanted to use these dangers to train his martial skills, and to comprehend a higher realm through battle. Martial cultivators, there was no retreat. Therefore, when he saw the many demonic souls in the heavenly lake, his first thought was not to retreat like the first cultivator who came in. Instead, the stronger they were, the more it aroused the martial artist's soul in his heart, and a strong desire to fight erupted. His eyes flickered as they swept over the thousands of demonic souls. When he swept his gaze over the demonic souls that even he could not see through and felt oppressed by the demonic souls, his eyes burst out with traces of light. Sir, it's here. We're here. The sound of the Guqin is coming from here. Just as Wu Wudi's fighting spirit was high, a clear and pleasant voice came from the mountain forest. This voice was actually a woman's. Haha, it seems that we're not the first to arrive. A laugh that made people feel no disgust rang out. Amidst the laughter, another group of people walked out from Chief Lin's side. This time, it wasn't just one, but 5 in a row. The one in the lead was a handsome young man dressed in white. He held a fan in his hand, and there was a painting of mountains and rivers on it. He swayed it gently, showing off his elegance. Every move he made was extremely natural and perfect. If he walked on the streets of the secular world, he would probably attract the admiration of countless young girls who were yearning for love. Behind him were 4 maidservants, each with a different temperament. Moreover, there were 2 pairs of twins, which looked very eye-catching. However, the 4 women's gazes were always on the young man in front of them, as if there was no other man in their eyes other than the young man. It was really enviable. Speaking of which, this young man was the young master of Aquamoon Heavenly Lake that Qin Xian had noticed before, Shui Wuhan. The 4 maidservants behind him were Mai, Lan, Zhu, and Ju. At this time, they had followed the sound of the Guqin to this place. Shui Wuhan came out and turned to look at Wu Wudi. She nodded with a smile and said, "I am Shui Wuhan. I wonder if we can be friends." Her words were filled with a hint of closeness. It was as if she wanted to be friends. Shui Wuhan, the young master of Aquamoon Heavenly Lake. When Wu Wudi heard that, his eyes flashed and he said in a low voice. He also nodded, neither accepting nor rejecting. After a glance, he looked at the group of spirits in front of him again, as if he was calculating where he should kill his way in. This person really doesn't know what's good for him. The young master wants to be friends, but he dares to put on airs. When Zhua saw Wu Wudi's expression, she frowned and snorted. She was indignant on behalf of her young master. Haha. When Shui Wuhan heard that, she closed the fan in her hand and said with a smile, "Zhua, don't be rude. I've said it before. If I treat people and things in the same way, others will treat me in the same way. That's what friends are." I, Shui Wuhan, Love the most in this life to make all kinds of friends. I wonder if you can tell me your name? The last sentence was said to Wu Wudi. Wu Wudi. As soon as the 3 words were spoken, a strong battle intent surged. Wu Wudi, I've heard of you. I think you're a martial cultivator. I heard that martial cultivators and sword cultivators used to be the strongest cultivators in terms of combat power. I don't know who's better. If we go out, I'd like to compete with you to see who's better. Just at this moment, before Shui Wuhan could say anything, an arrogant sword intent soared into the sky. A young man exuding a profound arrogance walked out of the forest. He was like an unsheathed sword, his entire body emitting sword intent. He looked at Wu Wudi with a hint of provocation. This person was none other than Lu Xiling of the Shenshin sword sect. He was extremely arrogant. I'll accompany you anytime. Wu Wudi glanced at him with a hint of disdain in his eyes, but he immediately looked away. In just a short time, almost all of the strongest cultivators in the Zither realm had gathered in front of the Heavenly Lake. Furthermore, after them, other cultivators who were lucky enough to survive appeared one after another. One by one, they arrived in front of the Heavenly Lake. Gradually, the number of cultivators who had gathered began to increase. Before long, there were more than 100 cultivators. This was about half of the survivors in the Zither realm. The rest were still arriving. Sad. 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 3 sorrowful sighs rang out, and a desolate aura suddenly appeared and reverberated in the air. As soon as the 3 sorrowful sighs rang out, the expressions of most of the cultivators around the Heavenly Lake changed dramatically. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com. I support the author. I support the original reading. Chapter 164. Amidst the sorrowful atmosphere, a pitch-black figure slowly walked out of the forest. His aura was abnormally gloomy, and the only thing that could be felt was sorrow. Why is this madman here as well? This is going to be troublesome. I heard that this madman is very strange. The aura he emits can make people involuntarily feel sad and enter a strange state of sadness. Moreover, those who dare to attack him all die in a strange way. They don't die at the hands of the enemy, but one by one, they commit suicide. I heard that this person is called Di Shitian. He once took out 2 bottles of monkey wine in the Zither Valley to buy pill arts and pill recipes. If he can take out such precious monkey wine so casually, his identity must not be simple. He's fine outside, but I don't know why, but when he entered the Zither realm, he went crazy. When this madman comes, we're going to be in trouble. Ancestor, please don't let him say the word sorrowful. If he says sorrowful, we're going to be in trouble. Seeing Sakura walking out of the forest and arriving in front of the Heavenly Lake, almost half of the cultivators hid far away with fear on their faces. During this period of time, the news about Sakura had already spread like wildfire, and some superficial information about him had also been spread. However, they only knew about what had happened in the Zither Sound Valley, and nothing else was known about him. Now, he had become a person that everyone was afraid of and kept a respectful distance from. During this period of time, the number of cultivators who died at the hands of Di Shitian was not small. They died in an extremely strange way. Almost all of them died by their own hands. They committed suicide with a sorrowful look on their faces. Such a scene made people shudder. Who would dare to approach him? If it wasn't for the fact that there was something strange about the Heavenly Lake and that it might be the biggest secret of the Zither realm, these people would have turned around and left as usual. They wouldn't have stayed for even a moment. What a heavy sense of sorrow. Di Shitian only stood quietly by the side of the Heavenly Lake. A rare trace of clarity appeared in his eyes amidst the endless sorrow. He listened to the melodious zither music from the Heavenly Lake, feeling the natural and peaceful aura of the zither music. He did not move at all. Although he stood still, he did not wander around in grief like he did in the past. This was the first time such a situation had happened since he was eroded by the endless grief contained in the pulse of grief. It was very different from the rest. The other cultivators tried to avoid Di Shitian, but Wu Wudi, who was closest to him, did not. He cultivated the martial Tao and walked the path of martial arts cultivation. Martial arts cultivation was a cultivator who dared to fight any powerful thing and did not submit to anything. If one did not even face it and directly retreated, they would never be able to understand the true meaning of martial arts cultivation. Therefore, others retreated, but he did not. He allowed the wisps of sorrow to spread and land on his body. Feeling the sadness in it, his body could not help but tremble. With an unusually serious expression, he spat out a sentence. His gaze towards Sakura was suddenly different. Although the sadness was strong, how could the sadness that was naturally emitted now corrode Wu Wudi's firm heart as a martial artist? But it also brought him a different kind of shock. Di Shitian's arrival not only shocked Wu Wudi, but also caused Shui Wuhan and Lu Xiling to look sideways at the same time. They unconsciously focused their attention on him. It didn't take long for all the remaining cultivators in the Zither realm to gather in front of the celestial pond. There weren't many of them. Over the past few days, there had only been about 200 cultivators. The rest had all perished in the Zither realm. However, although most of the cultivators had arrived, the melodious sound of the guqin in the air was crisp and pleasing to the ear. It was natural and peaceful, and no one had the urge to attack. It was as if the thought of fighting to the death had not arisen in them at all. They just quietly listened to the sound of nature and could not help but be intoxicated by it. Ding dong! The sound of the guqin stopped here. The originally peaceful atmosphere gradually dissipated in the air with the sound of the guqin. Ah! When the sound of the guqin stopped, Di Shitian's eyes, which had regained some clarity, immediately began to sink into depravity again. Slowly, he was about to be covered by that irresistible sorrow again. Instinctively, a kind of irritation surged in his heart. A kind of destructive fear surged in his heart. His eyes looked toward the depths of the heavenly lake, and a strong sense of possessiveness flashed in his eyes. Find it, find the sound of the guqin, find the sound of the guqin. The last trace of clarity in Di Shitian's eyes told him instinctively that he had to find the sound of the guqin. He had to find the sound of the guqin just now. Otherwise, he would be in great danger. He would be destroyed and consigned to eternal damnation. This kind of fear and strong desire immediately made him raise his head abruptly. He opened his mouth and let out a loud roar. This roar was not the long roar of a human, but the sorrowful roar of a tiger. As the tiger roar came out, circles of invisible ripples spread out instantly. The sound waves spread out in all directions like a tide. With him as the center, there were traces of distorted ripples in the air. On the ground, all the grass, trees, soil, and stones bounced up in an instant and exploded. Even the ground beneath his feet seemed to tremble. The domineering tiger's roar instantly reached the ears of all the cultivators. All the cultivators' faces changed. They became abnormally pale and their bodies trembled violently. Their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at Di Shitian. Bang, bang, bang. This tiger's roar targeted the demonic souls in the heavenly lake. As long as the demonic souls were below the foundation establishment stage, they all exploded and dissipated on the spot. Their soul essences rushed into their respective musical instruments. In almost an instant, the number of demonic souls in the heavenly lake was reduced by half. Then, a trace of incomparable determination appeared in Di Shitian's eyes. This determination was something that the endless sorrow in his body could not cover up. It was abnormally crazy. His body shot out like a sharp arrow from a bow. He dashed forward and stepped into the water of the heavenly lake. The water of the heavenly lake was able to withstand the terrifying power contained in this step. Immediately, a rainbow-colored pillar of water shot up into the air. Step by step, Xiao Chen stepped on the surface of the water, causing waves of terrifying loud noises to erupt from the pool. At an unknown time, numerous pitch-black blades had appeared in a flash beside Xiao Chen. They quickly revolved around Xiao Chen's body and danced around him in a mysterious trajectory. Looking at the number of demonic mist blades, Xiao Chen had already broken through to 20. It seemed to be flying in the air without any pattern, but it was protecting him from head to toe. In an instant, the 20 demon mist blades around Di Shitian flew up and down. Blade light flashed around him, making him look like a porcupine. His eyes flashed with madness and sorrow. He looked like he would kill any god or Buddha that stood in his way. Without hesitation, he charged towards the countless demonic souls. Trespassers of the heavenly lake, die. In the middle of the demonic souls, there were 3 demonic souls with exceptionally dignified auras. They looked like a man and 2 women. The 2 women were holding a zither and a pipa. The man was holding a purple drum in his hand. Judging by the aura of the musical instruments in their hands, it was obvious that they were not ordinary instruments. The quality of the instruments was even higher. However, their expressions were cold and emotionless. Seeing Di Shitian charging ferociously towards them, the 3 demonic souls shouted without holding back. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. Kill, kill, kill. The demonic souls in the heavenly lake moved in an instant. Streaks of killing intent fell on Di Shitian like sharp arrows. They attacked with their hands. All kinds of musical instruments sounded at the same time. The sound of the pipa, the zither, the flute, and all kinds of musical instruments could be heard at this moment. Moreover, when these sounds came out, they turned into sound blades of various sizes. They bombarded Di Shitian together. One could imagine the scene. With so many demonic souls forming sound blades to attack together, there were thousands of them. They were like heavenly girls scattering flowers, covering the sky and earth. Even if there was a mountain in front of him, it would be cut into countless pieces by these sharp sound blades. The terrifying killing intent seemed to have frozen the air around them. Zither sound, I need to find zither sound. There was only one thought in Di Shitian's mind. Facing the whistling attack, he did not dodge at all. He raised his head crazily and the demonic chi in his body surged to his throat like a tide. Roar. An earth-shattering tiger roar rang out once again. This tiger roar contained a huge amount of demonic chi. This roar was even more terrifying than the previous one. The surrounding water seemed to have been thrown with countless bundles of explosives. It exploded with a loud bang. Countless water pillars shot up into the sky. All of the sound waves spread out, and in an instant, the sound waves turned into blades. The sound blades that were as thin as cicadas' wings were pitch black. After they were formed, they immediately attacked the earth-shattering sound blades. Bang bang bang. Roar. Before the tiger roar ended, the second one followed. At this moment, the demon-refining cauldron in the demonic abode in his body seemed to have been injected with a stimulant. It spun crazily at an unprecedented speed, bringing out a sparkling belt of light around the cauldron. A vortex appeared. A terrifying devouring force was emitted, crazily absorbing all the energy around his body. Then, the energy was converted by the demon-refining cauldron and poured into his body through the demonic veins. Fierce, ferocious. These were no longer enough to describe how terrifying Di Shitian was at this moment. He, who had sunk into madness and sorrow, had formed his first demonic vein. In this state of unconsciousness, he was unbelievably fierce. Tiger roars came one after another, and countless sound blades swept out in all directions. When they collided with the sound blades released by the demonic souls, it was as if an ocean had crashed into a river. In an instant, the sound blades were crushed. Countless sound blades were destroyed on the spot. Furthermore, the sound blades formed by the tiger roar pressed down on the demonic souls like a tidal wave. The air seemed to be twisting and the surface of the water was constantly exploding. The terrifying scene was truly terrifying to the point that it could make any core formation cultivator's face turn pale and their mind tremble. Even a nascent soul cultivator, in front of such a crazy sacra, would have to temporarily avoid the sharp edge. At this moment, Di Shitian was invincible. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 165. Haha. Di Shitian is indeed Di Shitian. Not only is his name domineering, but his actions are even crazier. What a powerful tiger's roar. Wu Wudi's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but laugh loudly. He shouted with fighting spirit, "How can I let you have all the glory?" Firmament palm. Wu Wudi did not fear the terrifying battle in front of him at all. Instead, his warrior soul exuded an even higher fighting spirit. His body moved, and he used position swap to land in the heavenly lake. With a twist of his hands, he used a strange move and grabbed in front of him. Instantly, a rainbow-colored stream of water was sucked out of the lake and brought to him. With a turn of his palms, the water flow mysteriously turned into a rainbow-colored cloud. Then, as Wu Wudi pushed forward, the cloud pressed forward layer by layer like it could topple mountains and overturn seas. The concept of pushing clouds and fog filled this palm, as if it could really push away the clouds in the sky. His aura was vigorous and boundless. Under the firmament palm, dozens of demonic spirits were blasted into pieces on the spot. They turned into countless essences that rushed into the weapons they'd used in life. Then, they fell vertically into the heavenly lake. Sky-shattering fist. Wu Wudi displayed the powerful martial body of a martial cultivator. Without using any weapons, he clenched his hands into fists and punched forward steadily. Each punch didn't look fast, but there was a hidden intent that could shatter the heavens. Moreover, his fists contained fist intent. Only a fist with intent could be called a martial technique. Any enemy's courage would be suppressed by this intent that could shatter the heavens. It wasn't just intent. It also contained a vast and terrifying power. Martial cultivators didn't have weapons in their hands. Their entire body was the best weapon. Every punch and kick contained terrifying power. Every part of their body could turn into a terrifying weapon at any time. As soon as he entered the heavenly lake, he'd shattered no less than 10 monster spirits. The strength of a martial cultivator was on full display. Brother Di and Brother Wu have both made a move. How can I, Shui Wuhan, stand here and watch? When Shui Wuhan saw this, she smiled faintly and soared into the sky. The mountain and river fan in her hand suddenly opened, and the picture in the fan was clearly displayed. A beautiful scenery of mountains and rivers was condensed into this picture and fell into the fan. It was as if it really included the mountains and rivers of the world. The mountain river fan fanned at the monster spirits in the heavenly lake. Immediately, a steep mountain that was originally drawn on the fan suddenly separated from the picture as it shone with a strange light. Boom, boom, boom. The originally illusory mountain mysteriously appeared in the air, turning into a huge divine peak. In just a few breaths of time, the divine peak violently expanded. In the blink of an eye, it had become several dozen meters tall. It shone with an earthen yellow light and gave off a heavy, vast presence that pressed down on the world. The atmosphere under the mountain seemed to have solidified. It was as if the sky was collapsing. Almost all the spirits of the beasts in the lake were under the pressure of the mountain. It was as if they were going to exterminate all the monster spirits in one fell swoop. This kind of spending was really not small. You're not the only ones with skills. Look at my earth-splitting sword. Lu Xiling of the Profound Heart Sword sect saw that everyone was making a move. Moreover, each one was stronger than the other. He liked to stand in the place with the most attention. How could he be willing to show weakness at this time? He sneered and took out the ancient sword on his back. The blade of the sword was pitch black and he slashed towards the heavenly lake. When sword cultivators fought, they were not like immortal cultivators who used flying swords to fight. It looked as if they could behead someone from 1,000 miles away. They were very direct. They did not use flying swords to fight. Instead, they used swords to fight. The sword was their companion. How could they let it leave their side? When the sword was swung, the sword chi was like a rainbow. It wrapped around the ancient sword and formed a condensed sword light that connected the heavens and the earth. The sword slashed down from afar. It was a sharp sword intent that could cut the earth in half. Kill. Everyone, let's attack together. There are so many monster spirits. If we kill them all, how many embryos can we get? Kill. These cultivators had been following Wu Wudi's lead from the start. With a loud roar, the 200 cultivators gathered in the vicinity immediately used their various mystiques. Some threw out powerful spirit talismans, some formed hand seals, some used spiritual spells, some released flying swords, some took out immortal treasures, and others attacked the demon soul. Qinyin, found Qinyin. Di Shitian did not care about the others. His eyes were fixed on the heavenly lake. He rushed forward madly. Everything in front of him was his enemy. They were all targets he wanted to destroy. The earth-shattering sound blades tore through the air, wanting to tear all the monster spirits in front of him to pieces. There was only one thought in his mind. For a moment, the heavenly lake was filled with terrifying auras. Although the monster spirits did not have consciousness, most of them could not withstand the fierce attacks of Di Shitian and the others. Wu Wudi, Shui Wuhan, and Lu Xiling's attacks were quite frightening. It was definitely not something an ordinary demonic soul could withstand. Trespassers of the heavenly lake, die. The eyes of the man in the middle of the three demonic souls were filled with killing intent. The purple drum in front of him fell into the water. He held 2 drum hammers in his hands and let out a cold cry. He raised the drum hammer in his right hand and slammed it down on the purple drum. Dong! An earth-shaking drum sound suddenly rang out from the purple drum. This drum sound was simply terrifying to the extreme. Ripples visible to the naked eye were emitted from the drum. The sound was like thousands of thunderous roars in the sky. In the air, not only were there sound waves, but there were also terrifying explosive sounds, densely packed and continuously resounding throughout the world. It was so loud that the heavens and earth lost their sound. The innumerable sound blades that Di Shitian released actually collapsed one by one under the sound of the drum. They returned to nothingness. The sword light that could split open the earth was also shaken to the point of collapse, turning into sword chi. The sword chi then dissipated into nothingness. The divine peak that flew out from the mountain and river's fan trembled violently, and the divine light on it trembled. Even the divine mountain seemed to be disintegrating. Almost all the cultivators felt as if they had been struck by lightning at this moment. Ding dong! The monster spirit holding the zither brushed the zither. In an instant, the sound of the zither became ear-piercing. It was so sharp that it seemed to pierce the souls of those who heard it. Fut fut fut! More than half of the cultivators spat out blood. Their bodies trembled violently and they were thrown back. Their faces were pale. Clang clang! Before the sound of the zither faded, the sound of the peeper rang out again. This was like adding oil to the fire. The divine mountain trembled violently and shattered. It turned into a ray of yellow light and flew into the mountain and river fan. From this, it could be seen that these 3 demonic souls were definitely the strongest amongst the demonic souls. Each of them had only attacked once before they were able to instantly neutralize all of the attacks. Such strength could be said to be extremely frightening. It was certain that each of the 3 demonic souls possessed a terrifying strength that was no less than that of a core formation cultivator. Qinyin, I want to find Qinyin. No one can stop me. The madness in Di Shitian's eyes grew stronger. The sadness on his body grew stronger. The clarity in his eyes was almost covered by the sadness again. It was as if he knew that if he was covered by it, he would never be able to return to normal. He would fall into oblivion and be destroyed. Facing the terrifying monster spirits, he did not retreat at all. The sadness on his body swept through the world. Out of nowhere, a pitch-black long saber appeared in his hand. Stepping on the water, he felt extremely heavy. With a wave of his long saber, the demonic mist blades flying around him turned into sharp cold lights, launching their strongest attacks on the demonic spirits in front of him. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to rush over and kill everything in front of him. He wanted to rush out of the heavenly lake and into the cast cave. Bang, bang, bang. The demon mist blades were a kind of sharp offensive power that Di Shitian created himself. Their sharpness was their specialty. Under Di Shitian's command, they instantly cut through dozens of monster spirits in front of him. However, these monster spirits did not have any consciousness. They did not care about the attacks that were coming at them. They only knew how to attack Di Shitian with the most ferocious attacks. Therefore, when they were destroyed, rays of sharp sound blades appeared in front of him like lightning. Bang, bang. The black saber slashed forward, blocking all the sound blades that were attacking his vital points. As for those that were not vital points, he did not care about them at all. Step by step, he walked forward firmly. With every step he took, the monster spirits in front of him were destroyed. On Di Tian's body, there were wounds all over his body. With his body that was not inferior to the martial body, these wounds were not deep. Although they were bleeding, they did not affect him much. Bathed in blood, he walked forward step by step. His entire body was shrouded in madness and endless sorrow. He was like a demon god in the world. His resolute mind did not allow him to retreat at all. Trespassers of the heavenly lake, die. That male demon spirit holding the drum was attracted by Di Tian's crazy action and once again spat out the same sentence coldly. The drum hammer in his hand once again hit the purple drum. Dong. Almost all the power in this hit was directed at Di Tian. Fart. His body trembled violently. At this moment, Di Tian's internal organs seemed to be shattered by the sound of the drum. His qi and blood surged, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Find the zither sound, find the zither sound. He must find the zither sound. Crazy thoughts kept ringing in his mind. A terrifying light shot out from his eyes. Domineering, crazy, sorrowful, vicissitudes, etc., intertwined together, it was incomparably terrifying. He looked crazily at the monster spirit that was hitting the drum. In the demon palace in his body, the demon qi in the demon refining cauldron was like a long black river. It followed the demon vein that was connected to the demon palace and rushed out with a roar. Chapter 166. While the demon refining cauldron was rotating, it was also extracting a huge amount of essence from the corpses that were absorbed by the cauldron regardless of the consequences. This essence was only roughly refined, and a small part of it was refined into demonic qi, while the majority was only roughly refined before being directly thrown out of the cauldron. It should be known that only by refining into demonic qi could it truly become Sakra's own demonic qi. This type of demonic qi could be quickly recovered even if it was depleted. But if it was not refined, then it was truly used up and could never be recovered. It was a complete exhaustion. At this time, Di Tian did not care about this at all. He continued to extract essence qi from the corpses and into his body through the demonic vein. The roaring demonic qi was directly poured into the pitch-black blade in his hand without hesitation. The black blade was a magic tool. It was made from millennium black iron and various materials from the immortal realm. It could be considered an upper middle grade magic tool. It was also a weapon. It was enough to be used by cultivators below the core formation stage. Now, Sakra had unreservedly poured almost all of his demon primordial energy into the black blade. The blade of the black blade suddenly burst forth with an extremely intense black blade light. The blade trembled unceasingly, issuing a rapid blade cry. The sound of the blade was accompanied by a sorrowful whimper, as if it could feel that it was about to be destroyed. If anyone dares to stop me, then they will die. There was only one thought in Sakra's mind, and that was to kill his way through the heavenly lake and into the cast cave behind the heavenly lake at all costs. Driven by this thought, he didn't reserve any of his demonic primordial energy and poured it all into the black blade. Not only the demonic primordial energy, but also the infinite sadness he emitted. Shoo! When the power in the black knife reached a peak, it instantly flew out of his hand and turned into a black lightning bolt. It was like a meteor catching up with the moon. It appeared in front of the chest of the man playing the drum at an incredible speed. Dong. The male demonic spirit also had the cold indifference to life that the other demonic spirits had. It was as if they were born to expel all invaders from the Zither realm. As long as they could kill the enemy, even if they had to sacrifice their own lives, it was the same. Therefore, when they saw the black blade flying through the air, the two drumsticks in the male demonic spirit's hands struck at the same time, heavily smashing the purple drum. Immediately, the two drumbeats seemed to merge into one, like a thunderous roar. Around the drum, a series of sonic booms exploded as the ferocious sound waves surged out in all directions like a tidal wave. More than half of the attack released by the drum was directed towards Di Tian. A small part of it rushed towards the black blade. Obviously, it wanted to destroy the black blade as well. However, the demonic spirit's plan was obviously miscalculated. Some of the attacks that were directed towards Di Shitian were blocked by the demonic mist blade. The rest were blocked by the Seven Sins demonic zither, which automatically protected its master. It released sound waves to block for a while, but it was still unable to completely block the terrifying sound waves from the drum. The sound waves were blasted back into the body, and only then did the real attack hit him. The strong demonic spirit's body trembled involuntarily. He spat out blood, and there were traces of flesh in the blood. It was obvious that this drum had injured Di Shitian's lower back. However, while it injured Di Shitian, the demonic spirit did not have it easy either. After the black blade collided with the terrifying power that exploded from the drum, its speed did not decrease at all. The blade emitted endless sadness and broke through the void in front of it. It was as if it was riding the wind and breaking the waves, and quickly arrived in front of the demonic spirit. Bang! After all, the black blade was only a slightly above mid-grade ritual implement. It was not a top-grade ritual implement that could be compared to a true ritual implement. It was also not a true ritual implement. The demonic chi and sadness that Di Shitian poured into the blade was almost unbearable for the black blade. At that time, it let out a terrifying cry. Now, it was under the attack of the drum. When the black blade arrived in front of the demonic spirit, it had almost completed its mission. The blade could no longer hold on. With a loud bang, it was as if an atomic bomb had been thrown. The terrifying power contained in the blade suddenly exploded. The power of this explosion was not inferior to that of a core formation cultivator's self-destruction. In fact, it was even more terrifying. The black blade shattered into countless pieces. Like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, it was incomparably sharp. It blasted into the bodies of all the demonic spirits nearby. Those that were slightly closer were immediately torn into pieces. The drum-beating demon soul was the first to bear the brunt of the explosion. He was completely enveloped by the power of the explosion. In the blink of an eye, over 100 fragments landed on his body. These fragments contained the terrifying power of the explosion. When they landed on him, they basically cut through his body like tofu. Countless wounds immediately appeared on his body. Its entire body was like a tattered piece of clothing. Even half of its head was blown off in the explosion. This kind of injury was enough to kill it on the spot. Boom! With a crisp sound, countless cracks appeared on the demonic spirit's body. Its entire body was completely torn apart. It turned into wisps of spiritual chi. Like swallows returning to their nest, it merged into the purple drum. It was not only the demonic spirit. The two demonic spirits beside it, one holding a peeper and the other a guqin, were also in trouble. Wounds appeared on their bodies. Guqin, I need to find Guqin. The demonic spirits that were blocking in front of him were all destroyed, and the trace of clarity in the Sakra's eyes became even weaker. Without even thinking, his body quickly rushed forward, and at the same time, as if by instinct, he kept all the weapon embryos along the way into his storage bag. Moreover, it did not affect his speed in the slightest. Countless afterimages appeared behind him as he rushed straight into the cast cave behind the heavenly lake. Haha, this feels good. Kill. Wu Wudi looked up to the sky and laughed, his heroic spirit rising. Seeing that Sakra had forcefully opened a path, his eyes couldn't help but brighten. He rushed towards the group of spirits and unleashed all kinds of powerful martial skills without holding back, entangling the female spirit with the zither on the spot. At this moment, the others didn't hesitate at all and unleashed all kinds of trump cards one after another. Shui Wuhan continuously fanned the mountain and river fan in her hand. From time to time, a torrential river would roll over. From time to time, a divine mountain would fall. All kinds of attacks were used in the mountain and river fan. It could be said to be an incredible treasure. A Dharma treasure. This was a real Dharma treasure. Moreover, it definitely had a history. Lu Xiling's sword radiance constantly slashed down, exploding with sharp sword will and destroying the demonic spirits one after another. However, these demonic spirits were all unafraid of death. Under the crazy counterattack, more than 100 of the 200 cultivators fell in a short period of time. Even Wu Wudi and the others had wounds of different sizes on their bodies. Di Shitian used the destructive power of the self-explosion to kill the 3 strongest demonic spirits and lightly injure the 2 female demonic spirits. At that moment, none of the demonic spirits could stop him. He stepped on the water like a flickering shadow, exuding a strong sense of sorrow. In an instant, he passed through the obstruction of the remaining 2 strongest demonic spirits and crossed the heavenly lake in one fell swoop. The pitch-black cast cave fell into his eyes clearly. Enter the cave, I must enter the cave. Seeing the cast cave, Di Shitian's eyes, which were gradually covered by sorrow, suddenly flashed with a trace of clarity. Without hesitation, he rushed into the cave. The entrance of the cast cave looked like the mouth of a ferocious beast, as if it would swallow people at any time. The entire entrance seemed to be covered by a thin layer of black gauze. It made it impossible for people to see through the black gauze and see what was inside. Whoosh, whoosh. Bursts of strange wind howling came from the cave. It sounded even more eerie. The people who heard it could not help but feel a sense of fear in their hearts. There was a sinister aura in the cave. The howling of the wind was like the breathing of some ferocious beast. Anyone who stood at the entrance of the cave would hesitate for a moment. They would carefully weigh the pros and cons. However, Di Shitian did not. As soon as he came to the entrance of the cave, he did not hesitate at all. His figure passed through the black gauze in front of the cave like lightning and rushed in. The black gauze at the entrance of the cave did not dissipate because someone passed through it. It rolled gently a few times and then recovered. It looked as if no one had passed through it at all. It was very strange. After entering the cave, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. It was not pitch black like the entrance of the cave. Instead, this cast cave was made of some unknown material. The surrounding stones emitted faint blue light. This light was naturally emitted from the surrounding stone walls. The blue light flickered and illuminated the things in the cave very clearly. As long as people with a little cultivation entered this place, they would be able to see the things around clearly. In front of him was not a straight passage, but a series of 9 forks. Every single one of these 9 forks looked almost the same, and it was hard to tell what was different about them. The auras that they emanated were identical to one another, making it hard for one to tell which path they should take. Even the sharpest of minds would have to think twice before making a decision. However, Sakura seemed to have sensed something. After he entered, his figure still didn't stop as he skimmed into one of the forks. His speed was not slow in the first place, and in this strange sad state, he was several times faster than usual. If someone was here, they would only see a black shadow flash and then disappear. This cast cave was very strange. Gusts of mysterious wind blew out of the cave from time to time, making terrifying roars. Moreover, there were many forks in the cast cave. At the end of every fork, there would be several similar forks. Such forks were almost endless. It was like a huge maze. If they didn't know the specific path, they might wander around here for years, decades, or even centuries without finding anything. Although there weren't any dangerous ferocious beasts or demonic spirits inside, a maze like this could trap a person until their lifespan ran out and they died. That kind of boundless loneliness was even more torturous. It's the end of the month. Brothers with monthly tickets, please spend a few tickets. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 167. If it was a formation, the most annoying thing was undoubtedly the maze formation. If someone entered this place and didn't know the way to break the maze formation, they would walk back and forth. It would seem that they had walked thousands of miles, but in the end, they would realize that they had walked in circles for days and nights. Even if they walked for hundreds or thousands of years, they would only walk in a small circle. If they found out, they would be disgusted to death. What was even more disgusting than the maze formation was a maze. A maze was even more disgusting. In a maze, Almost everything you saw was exactly the same. The forks were the same, the passageways were the same, and the rocks under your feet were the same. Every passageway was exactly the same, without any deviation. If you walked out of this forked path, there would be another 10 or so identical forked paths in front of you. Every step you took was a step deeper into the maze. In the end, it would be strange if you didn't go crazy because of the endless forked paths. Perhaps someone with a weaker will would completely collapse in the maze. A maze like this didn't need any guards. Once you entered, the maze was your biggest enemy. There were only two kinds of people who could pass through such a maze. The first kind was those who knew the specific way of the maze, had a map of the maze in hand, or could find some obscure markings. Only then would they be able to reach the destination. The second kind was those who were extremely lucky and could find the right path with their eyes closed. That was a matter of innate luck. No one could say anything when they walked out. There was another kind, which was even rarer, intuition. Innate intuition, or the ability to sense something. Only then would they be able to pass through unimpeded. The cast cave in front of them was the most disgusting kind of maze. No matter how good a person's memory was, they would become confused after walking a few rounds in this place. However, Di Shitian's performance was even more mysterious. He naturally shuttled through the forked paths, his body moving quickly like a ghost. Every time he came to a fork, he didn't seem to need to think at all and could directly choose a path. It was as if he had some kind of intuition in the dark. In an instant, he had passed through countless forked paths. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, in the heavenly lake, the fierce fighting suddenly stopped. Many figures passed through the black veil in front of the cave and rushed into the cave. They were led by Wu Wudi, Shui Wuhan, and Lu Xiling. There were less than 100 cultivators behind them, and each of them had wounds of varying sizes. He appeared to be in a sorry state. However, even though they were in a sorry state, traces of joy surfaced on their faces as their gazes occasionally landed on their storage bags. Obviously, each of them placed great importance on the items in their bags. That's right. The sound of the zither came from this cave. Di Shitian had already rushed in and is nowhere to be seen. He must have entered the cave. However, there were 9 forks in front of him, and he didn't know which one was the correct entrance. If you go the wrong way, it might be very troublesome. Wu Wudi's eyes flashed. He didn't care about the injuries on his body. He kept looking back and forth at the 9 forks. He hoped that he could find the correct passage. Unfortunately, to his disappointment, the 9 forks were exactly the same in terms of appearance and aura. There was no difference at all. It was quite difficult to tell which one was the correct one. It was almost impossible. I'm afraid this is a huge maze. I read about it in the library back at home. If there are forks in front of you, there's an 80 to 90% chance that it's a huge maze. Such a maze is easy to enter, but difficult to exit. If you can't find the correct path, it's possible that you'll be trapped in there for the rest of your life. Everyone, please don't recklessly enter the forks. Shui Wuhan closed his folding fan with a snap. He looked at the cave in front of him with a dignified expression. It was obvious that he was taking it seriously. The smallest part of the labyrinth was that there were 3 forks in the beginning. After the other forks, there would be 3 more forks. The cycle of 3 by 3 was endless. If you couldn't find the way out, you would be trapped inside. The higher the number of forks, the more frightening the labyrinth would be. It was said that the highest level of the labyrinth was the 9 paths. There were exactly 9 forks in front of them. If they went in, there was a 99% chance that they'd be trapped in there. Then what do we do? Are we going to be blocked by these forks? The verdant zither might be hidden in the maze. If we stop here, we won't be able to achieve the purpose of this trip. Lu Xiling frowned, appearing extremely impatient and annoyed. Almost everyone who had survived realized that the greatest secret of the zither realm might be hidden in this maze. It was also their goal this time, the verdant zither. After all, the natural and peaceful sound of the zither had come from here. In this place, no one was a big deal. It could be guessed with one's toes. However, in front of these 9 forks, no one dared to act rashly. They were afraid that if they entered, they wouldn't be able to come out. That would be a complete tragedy. No one wanted to play around with their lives and gamble on a small probability. For a moment, everyone looked at the 9 forks in front of them at the entrance of the cave and didn't move. It was as if they weren't forks in front of them, but 9 terrifying fierce beasts. In the myriad demon valley, on the waterfall peak in the valley, a clear stream of water splashed with countless snow-white splashes fell from the sky and heavily fell into the pool below. There was a large reef on the peak. On the reef, a girl in a snow-white dress was holding a cyan treasure box in her hand. Her 2 intelligent eyes were constantly scanning the treasure box. She reached out a hand and wanted to put it down, but she couldn't. After a long time, as if in a fit of pique, he threw the treasure box to the side and said angrily, "How infuriating. Who exactly created this imperial heavenly treasure box? To actually use such a puzzle as a restriction. If I hadn't seen Sakura, I wouldn't have known that there was such a puzzle hidden in this jade box. But why is the puzzle so difficult?" His gaze towards the treasure box was filled with anger. She was annoyed that Di Shitian could solve the puzzle, but she couldn't. Didn't this mean that she was inferior to Di Shitian? Sister Bai Hu, if you can't solve it, then don't. When brother comes back, return it to him and let him solve it. Brother will definitely find a way to solve it. Beside her, a little white tiger looked at the girl and said. It had incomparable confidence in the brother it was referring to. It was as if in her heart, her brother was omnipotent. Your brother went out this time and his whereabouts are uncertain. It's to learn zither skills so that he can control the 7 sins demon zither. I'm afraid he won't be back for a year or 2. The girl in the palace dress shook her head slightly. She looked into the distance. They were none other than Bai Hu, Su Tianxiang, and little Di Shitian. When Di Shitian was about to leave, Bai Hu suddenly asked Di Shitian for the heavenly treasure box. Although Di Shitian knew that there was a big secret in this treasure box, he needed Bai Hu to look after the myriad demon valley. Bai Hu's strength was even more unfathomable, so he could only return the treasure box to her. Bai Hu had seen Di Shitian solve the treasure box. Only then did she know that the patterns on the treasure box that looked like patterns in the past were actually a puzzle. Only then did she understand the true key to solving the treasure box. Therefore, when she got the treasure box, she wanted to solve it by hand. Unfortunately, none of these pieces were connected. They looked like little tadpoles. There was not much difference or connection between them. It seemed that Bai Hu did not have any talent in this area. Looking at the dense patterns, her eyes were dizzy. It was as if countless little tadpoles had appeared in front of her. She wanted to solve it but did not know where to start. Only then did she angrily throw the treasure box aside. She laughed bitterly to herself. Is the heavenly treasure box really not fated to be with me? Could it be that its owner is Di Shitian? Brother is learning, and Little White also wants to become stronger. Little White has been cultivating the cultivation technique that brother left for me these days. I'm much stronger than before. When brother comes back, Little White wants to give brother a surprise, Little White said longingly. These days, not only Little White, it could be said that all the spirit beasts and monsters in the valley were cultivating with all their might. With the help of elixirs and spirit wine, all of them buried their heads in cultivation. They were all holding their breaths, hoping that they could be of use in the future. They hoped that during this period of time, they could become demonic beasts. One had to know that before leaving, Di Shitian had even passed down the secret technique of opening up the demonic abode. He had also made all the subordinates in the valley loyal to him. There would definitely not be a situation of betrayal. This was loyalty to the death. Using kindness and authority had always been the best method for a person in a higher position. Bai Hu gently patted Little White's head. She raised her head and looked into the distance. There was a strange expression on her face. Swoosh. Sakura quickly shuttled through the passageway. Every time he chose a fork, he didn't need to think at all. He didn't know how many forks he had passed through before his eyes suddenly opened up. After walking out of the fork, what was placed in front of him was no longer an endless fork, but a huge and spacious cave. In front of his eyes, there were pieces of floating water. Sparkling and translucent water ripples appeared. They were suffused with a strange luster. In front of him was a pool. The water in the pool was incomparably clear. There were pieces of smooth large stones in the pool, connecting all the way to form a path on the water. In the center of the pool, there was actually an ancient pavilion. Obviously, this was not naturally formed. In the pavilion, there was a table and a stool. On the table, there was a green jade zither. On the jade zither, there were simple and unadorned lines. When combined together, they were actually pieces of jade green leaves. Within these green leaves, if one looked carefully, one could feel an extremely rich aura of life. This made the jade zither even more mysterious and extraordinary. Zither, zither, zither. As soon as Di Shitian entered, his sorrowful eyes fell on the jade zither in the ancient pavilion. A trace of clarity appeared in his eyes. Without hesitation, he stepped on those reefs and landed in the ancient pavilion. The moment his hands entered, he grabbed the jade zither. Very strangely, the jade zither did not have a trace of resistance. His hands landed on the zither. With this touch, his body trembled violently. The sorrow in his eyes actually slowly faded. Hehe, many thanks to the Moonlight Clan, the Dead Shadow, and the other brothers for their tips. Many thanks to all of you for your monthly votes. I hope that those of you who have the ability can help me subscribe to this page. Chapter 168. From the body of the zither, a cool and mysterious energy quickly spread from his palm into his body. This energy seemed to contain endless vitality, as well as a natural and peaceful aura. When it entered his body, it was as if he had suddenly been doused with ice water at 0 degrees Celsius on a hot summer day. His entire body, from the bottom of his heart, felt cold all over. His entire body quivered, and the sadness in his eyes quickly receded like the tide. However, this sadness only disappeared from his eyes, and the sadness in his body was only suppressed to a weak state. It did not truly dissipate, but was only suddenly suppressed. Obviously, this was not a dispersal. When the sadness gradually disappeared, Di Shitian's eyes gradually regained their clarity and became bright. In his eyes, one could see traces of fear. Hua. He lowered his head to look at the zither in front of him, deep in thought. Suddenly, he lifted his hand from the zither again and removed it. In the instant that he removed it, his originally clear eyes, out of nowhere, once again emitted a strong sense of sadness. Moreover, it appeared relatively quickly, and its power was incomparably strong. It was almost as if it was about to swallow the clarity in his body in an instant. This change immediately caused him to place his hand on the zither again at lightning speed. Strangely, when his hand touched the zither, instantly, the sadness in his body seemed to have met its nemesis. It quickly disappeared, and in the blink of an eye, more than half of it was retracted into his body. How terrifying! I was almost consigned to eternal damnation, and completely sunk into the realm of sadness. I did not expect that when I fused the power of sadness with my demon veins, it would actually create the pulse of sadness, and attract the endless sadness of all living beings in the world, and exert it on my body. I did not even have the ability to resist, and directly fell into this enormous sadness of all living beings. Di Shitian placed his hand on the zither, and did not dare to remove it at all. He raised his head and sighed, and a trace of fear flashed across his face. He clearly knew what had happened during this period of time, and every single one of them was clearly remembered in his mind, including how he entered the realm of sadness, how his body was controlled by the sadness, how he wandered around in the realm of the zither, and how he killed Shue Ini and the rest. All of it was deeply imprinted in his mind. He only had a deep lingering fear for what he had experienced during this period of time. Back then, when he fused the power of sorrow into the demonic meridian, he already had a premonition that something unexpected would happen. After all, this was something that no one had ever tried before. What was even more unexpected was that the demonic meridian would become a meridian of sorrow. Of course, this meridian of sorrow was not without its miraculous aspects. The benefit was that with this meridian of sorrow, he could rely on it to absorb the boundless power of sorrow in the world, taking the first step towards absorbing the power of desire. However, The disadvantage was also very obvious. The sorrow that was triggered by the meridian of sorrow gathered the sorrow of all living beings in the world. All the sad things that happened, all the sad thoughts, all rushed to him. The result of this was a sorrowful state of affairs. This sorrowful state could be said to be a type of illusion, a state of tempering one's heart. Once one entered, they wouldn't be able to see through it and would be corroded by the sorrowful intent contained within the sorrowful state. If one wanted to recover, it would be an impossible matter. This was also the situation that Sakura encountered earlier. That scene was the best manifestation of being corroded by the sorrowful intent. Without any accidents, one would completely sink into it and never wake up again. One would become a walking corpse, never to be able to transcend. How could Di Shitian not be afraid when he thought of such a consequence when he woke up? This had nothing to do with anything else but pure fear. After all, the sorrowful state was too terrifying. Even if an immortal god was in his position, he would probably end up the same way. There would definitely be no other outcome. Unless one had a treasure that could protect one's mind, perhaps only then would one not be afraid of the terrifying sorrowful thoughts of all living beings. This zither. Could it be the legendary green silk zither of the zither school? But whether it is or not, it can help me resist the erosion of sorrow. This is definitely an incredible treasure. Sakura withdrew his lingering fear and fixed his eyes on the guqin in front of him. The guqin presented a kind of living jade green color. There were 7 strings on the guqin, and the green leaves all over the body of the guqin were emitting bursts of strong life aura. Pa. Sitting on the jade stool, he picked up the zither and looked under the body of the zither. In an instant, 2 ancient words full of green appeared in front of him, green silk. Without a doubt, this zither was indeed the biggest treasure in this zither realm. The most precious treasure was also the green silk zither used for the betrothal. After thinking about it, he poured his monster essence into the zither. It was very strange. Monster essence couldn't enter the zither at all. It was rejected from the outside as if it couldn't be refined at all. Looking at the zither, Di Shitian didn't have the slightest bit of joy on his face. His eyes flashed with a profound light from time to time. His expression was very strange, as if he was neither unhappy nor disappointed. In fact, he was extremely conflicted. The green silk zither is an item used by the Qin family for the betrothal. They said that as long as I find the zither and bring it out of the zither realm, I'll be the son-in-law of the Qin family, Kotomi's husband and Dao partner. However, I entered the zither realm because I was curious and wanted to see the mysteries of the zither realm. Second, I wanted to go into seclusion to condense my first spirit vein. Third, I wanted to find the zither. According to my original plan, once I found the zither, I would enter the Qin family as a gift and ask them to teach me music theory and the art of the zither. However, the sadness in my body hasn't disappeared. The zither seems to contain a mysterious power that can help me suppress the sadness in my heart. If I leave the zither, I'm afraid I'll fall into the same situation again. That is, even if I have 9 more lives, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to escape. He'd already tried it earlier. The zither could indeed suppress his sadness, but it wouldn't disappear immediately. If his body was strong enough, it would become a tragedy. The problem was that he couldn't hand over the zither now. If he got the zither, the Qin family would never allow him to take it away. After all, it was the Qin family's most precious treasure. Moreover, he'd never thought of becoming the son-in-law of the Qin family and marrying Kotomi. He was a spirit beast, and Kotomi was a human. He was now enemies with most of the cultivators in the cultivation world, and there was also the Colossus that was the 10,000 beasts sect above him. If a human and a spirit beast were to marry, there would be immeasurable obstacles. Taking a step back, Sakura didn't put the issue of hindrance in his eyes. After becoming the Demon Empress, his style of doing things had gradually leaned towards a situation where there was no taboo and he did as he pleased. The problem was that he'd only seen Kotomi once, and it was under a veil. It could only be said that he'd seen half of her face. There were no feelings between them. Under such circumstances, it was absolutely impossible for him to marry her. He'd only come to learn the zither, not to marry a wife. However, there was now a problem with the zither. I can't hand this zither over to the Qin family for now. Without the suppression of the zither's mysterious power, I'll fall into the sorrowful mirror at any time. However, if I don't hand it over, how to hide it will become a problem. Di Shitian pondered. Hiding the zither was definitely a big problem. After all, it belonged to the Qin family. Even if he put it in a storage pouch after leaving, the Qin family might use a secret technique to detect it. Moreover, the zither couldn't leave his body. Hide it in the Yarrow residence, or in the Yarrow refining cauldron? These thoughts only turned for a moment before he dismissed them. He hadn't refined the zither, so it was impossible for him to put it in the Yarrow residence. Therefore, it wouldn't work. Suddenly, a light flashed in his mind. The purple king mark on his forehead flickered, and an idea came to him. If it can't be in the Yarrow residence, then I wonder if the purple pool in my king mark can absorb it. If it can, given the mysteriousness of my king mark, even the Qin family would find it difficult to detect it. Indeed, the purple king mark was his innate magical ability. Although it could only absorb some souls now and didn't seem to be too powerful, Sakura had always been very certain that this innate magical ability was absolutely not what it appeared to be now. It must have other powerful aspects. It contained inconceivable power. If it was truly unleashed, it would shock the heavens and earth and make ghosts and gods weep. The purple pool was even more mysterious. Perhaps, with the mysteriousness of the king mark, it could absorb the zither. Millimeter, I'll give it a try. If it works, I'll be able to suppress the sorrowful intent in my body. Next, even if I can't enter the Qin family, I can still enter through other means. Di Shitian acted without hesitation. With a thought, the purple king mark on his forehead immediately emitted strands of purple light. The mark flickered violently, like a burning purple flame. It looked very wondrous. Purple light sprinkled down like rain, quickly covering the verdant zither in front of him. Under his control, the king mark emitted a powerful suction force, connecting with the purple pool space in the king mark, wanting to pull the zither into the purple pool. Ding dong! In the purple light, the strings of the verdant zither suddenly vibrated, emitting a crisp sound. A powerful aura of life burst out of the zither. It seemed to want to resist, but strangely, at the last moment of eruption, the aura suddenly retracted and returned to the zither. Then, it emitted waves of green light, following the pull of the king mark, turning into a green light, smoothly rushing into the purple pool space in the king mark. Ding dong! In the purple pool, all the souls were immersed in the water. Strands of purple light surged from the pool to their bodies. Slowly, it seemed that a purple battle armor formed from purple light was beginning to condense on their bodies. All of them had their eyes closed, and didn't seem to be awake at all. It was very strange. This was something that even Di Shitian couldn't change. Now, in the purple pool, more than 1,000 souls had been absorbed, close to 2,000. Most of them were human souls, and a small number were the souls of animals. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 169. No matter if it was a human soul or a demon's soul, as long as they entered the purple pool, they would be covered by the purple light. Then, the originally struggling soul would naturally calm down, as if some kind of fundamental transformation was happening. However, Sakura didn't know what kind of mystery was behind all of this. He only knew that it was definitely developing in a good direction. Perhaps it was the purple king mark's own transformation. In any case, every time he absorbed a soul, he could clearly feel the power of the king mark growing stronger. This kind of strength was a mysterious feeling that couldn't be described with words. Moreover, he couldn't use the other powers of the king mark. When the zither entered the purple pool, it directly floated above the purple pool. Its surface glowed with a dark green light. Waves of mysterious power emanated from the zither and slowly flowed through the king mark into his body. It kept suppressing the endless sorrow that erupted from the meridian of sorrow. Not only that, but at the same time that it emitted power to suppress the sorrow, strands of purple chi seeped out from the purple pool and entered the zither. The zither didn't reject any of it and absorbed as much as it came. Di Shitian frowned slightly when he saw the zither really being absorbed into the space of the king mark and the various strange phenomena that occurred. However, he didn't care. The zither didn't cause him any harm and only absorbed some purple chi. Anyway, with the purple pool, the purple chi was practically endless. He wasn't afraid of it drying up. The meridian of sorrow has been temporarily suppressed, but how do I truly resolve it? Also, if I reach the next level, the late stage, I'll have to create a second spirit meridian. Don't tell me I'll have to continue drawing out other desires to fuse with the second spirit meridian. Di Shitian immediately began to think about the future after solving the problem in front of him for the time being. The first thing he had to think about was how to cultivate in the future. Since he had made the spirit meridian of sorrow, he could feel the power of sorrow in the world. Moreover, he could clearly feel that he could absorb the power of sorrow into his body. However, he had shaped the meridian of sorrow, which meant that he had begun to abandon the original roaring tiger technique. If he wanted to cultivate again, it would be very different from the original cultivation. After all, since ancient times, no one had been able to absorb the power of desire in the heavens and earth. If the power of desire could be absorbed, how could he cultivate? If he wanted to refine it, should he turn it into demonic chi or the power of desire? All of this left him at a loss. This was a problem that needed to be solved urgently. This also meant that no one would be able to guide him much in his cultivation in the future. He had to rely on himself. If he could succeed, then he would be opening up a path that had never existed since ancient times. Furthermore, the choice was already in front of him. After forming the first demonic vein, his cultivation base had already reached the middle demonic beast realm. If he wanted to advance further, he would reach the late demonic beast realm. The process of accumulating demonic chi was something that could be accomplished within half a year or a year by relying on the essence of the corpses in the cauldron. At that time, he would have to start forming the second demonic vein. What should he do then? This was a difficult choice to make. If he chose to integrate the power of desire, he would completely deviate from the ordinary demonic cultivation path. He would be walking on an unprecedented path. If he chose to follow the orthodox method of forming the ordinary demonic vein, it would be equivalent to walking on the ancient demonic cultivation path. One was the unknown. The other was that there was an example in front of him and he could see the light. This choice was a major one that would determine the path of one's life. If I choose to integrate the power of desire, every time I form a demonic vein, I will add one more power of desire. There are 7 emotions and 6 desires in the heavens and earth. In total, there are 13 emotions and 6 desires. However, once the power of desire is integrated, it will erupt with a terrifying desire. It will be extremely dangerous. At any time, I may step into the land of eternal damnation. Di Shitian shook his head inwardly. He could not make this decision for the time being. After all, this was something that could not be sloppy. Forget it. We will cross that bridge when we get to it. Now, I have to solve the problem of the sorrow in my body. I have to figure out how to not be affected by the sorrow, how to use it for my own purposes, and how to enter the Qin family. As for the rest, I will slowly think of a way in the future. He suddenly stood up and looked at his body. His original black robes had become tattered and could not be worn again. There were also many wounds on his body. However, for some reason, the wounds from the demonic spirits in the heavenly lake began to heal automatically when he came into contact with the verdant silk zither. Now, whether it was inside or outside, everything was fine. There were only a few wounds left on his body. Di Shitian did not care about the wounds. There was a saying, which man did not have a few scars on his body? Scars were a man's unique charm. He was not a woman. Why should he care? After changing into a new black robes, he scanned his surroundings. He discovered that there was really nothing in this ancient cave. Apart from the verdant silk zither that he had collected, there was nothing left. However, it was not surprising. If there was anything here, it would have been taken away by the Qin family long ago. Why would they leave it to others? It's almost a month. It's time to go out. With a wave of his long sleeves, he stepped on the stones in the lake and quickly stood on the opposite side. He began to return the way he had come. He had memorized the path he had taken earlier. As long as he followed his memory, he would be able to walk out easily. There was no need to worry about the danger of getting lost in this great maze. He walked forward quickly. As he walked, he did not know how many forks he had passed along the way. He walked for more than an hour. Finally, after passing through the last fork in the road, the scene before his eyes suddenly opened up, and the figures in front of him were imprinted into his eyes. Whoosh! The figures in front of him were Wu Wudi and the others. No one dared to set foot in this great maze. They were afraid that if they entered, they would not be able to come out alive. The cruelty of the Zither realm had made everyone aware that no one would joke around here. If they were not careful, they could lose their lives here. This was a bloody lesson that spurred them on. However, they were not so willing to retreat. In front of the fork, they all silently pondered, hoping to find a way out. And the appearance of Sakura, almost in an instant, attracted everyone's attention. Rays of light fell on his body with whooshing sounds. Heavens! It's that madman surnamed Di. He actually walked out of the maze. How is that possible? This maze is the most terrifying Great 9-turn maze. How could he walk out safely? Madman, he really is a madman. Only a madman would rush into the maze. It's very likely that the verdant zither is hidden in the maze. Now that he has walked out, could it be that he has already obtained the verdant zither? In an instant, cries of alarm rang out one after another. However, everyone only looked at him suspiciously, and no one dared to act rashly. The scene of Sakura fighting against the demonic souls in the heavenly pool was still vivid in their minds. That crazy look, that ferocious fighting style, that ferocious scene where he was willing to fight to the death with others, and that ferocious scene where he would rather fight to the death than retreat, all made people shudder in fear when they faced Sakura. Fear. That's right, fear. Although this feeling should not have appeared, it did appear in the hearts of most cultivators. From this, it could be seen that in their hearts, Sakura was absolutely the one they didn't want to provoke the most. It was as if his body was shrouded in a mysterious aura. When Wu Wudi saw Di Shitian, a smile appeared on his rough face. Brother Di is indeed extraordinary. You can even walk back and forth in the great 9-turn maze. I, Wu Wudi, am full of admiration. If there's a chance, I hope to exchange pointers with Brother Di. He was a little surprised to see Di Shitian. After all, he had seen Di Shitian enter before everyone else with his own eyes. When they entered, he disappeared. Obviously, he had entered the maze. Everything in front of him confirmed his guess. A martial cultivator, Di Shitian still exuded traces of sadness. He had not completely suppressed it. This sadness did not affect him and even had the effect of concealing his demonic aura. In comparison, under the effect of sadness, as long as it was not completely exposed, it should be very difficult for people to detect the demonic aura emanating from his body. All they could feel was a sense of sadness. Under such circumstances, sadness seemed to have a side benefit. He had some impression of Wu Wudi. He didn't dislike his temperament and seemed to be a person he could make friends with. However, he didn't say much at this moment. Wuhan would also like to make friends with a friend like Brother Di. If you're interested, why don't the three of us gather in a restaurant after we leave the Zither domain? We can drink and chat merrily. Shui Wuhan also took a step forward and said to Sakura with a smile. In his smile, people could feel a kind of sincerity. They couldn't help but like him. Surprisingly, whether it was Wu Wudi or Shui Wuhan, neither of them asked Sakura if he had found Lu Qi-Qin. Instead, they only said that they wanted to make friends. However, their gentleness did not mean that the others would let it go so easily. A cold glint flashed in Lu Xiling's eyes as he looked at Di Shitian. He suddenly questioned, Wu Wudi and Shui Wuhan think highly of you and did not ask, but I, Lu Xiling, am not afraid of you. This maze is in the middle of the Guqin realm, and the previous Guqin music came from here. If I'm not mistaken, the Lu Qi-Qin is in the maze. You are the only one who entered and came out safely. Has the verdant zither already fallen into your hands? His voice was incomparably sharp, and every word was like a sharp arrow that shot towards Di Shitian. There was a sense of superiority in his tone, as if he was speaking to a servant. He questioned them without any trace of politeness, and there was a hint of arrogance in his tone. Almost instantly, Di Shitian's eyes shot out two rays of astonishing radiance. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 170. When he looked at Lu Xiling, he glanced at the other cultivators except for Wu Wudi and Shui Wuhan. He found that most of them involuntarily looked at him after hearing Lu Xiling's question. Moreover, there was a look of anticipation in their eyes. Obviously, they were also very concerned about this question. The verdant zither was in his hands, but would he really be so stupid to tell others about it? If it had been before the formation of the Meridian of Sorrow, he might have given the zither to the Qin family as he had originally planned. But now, in order to suppress the hidden dangers in his body, he did not even intend to tell the Qin family about the existence of the verdant zither. How could he reveal it to others? How could Di Shitian be so stupid? A cold light flashed in his eyes and shot directly into Lu Xiling's. He said indifferently, "Who are you? What right do you have to question me? Not to mention that I have never seen the verdant zither. Even if I had seen it and obtained it, why should I tell you?" As he spoke, a strong majestic aura emanated from his body without any concealment. It pressed down on Lu Xiling like an avalanche. This aura was the natural majesty of the King of Beasts. As the king of the myriad demon valley, it was the aura of a superior being that had been cultivated bit by bit. At this moment, although Di Shitian was standing in front of him, his whole person was like an incomparably tall mountain. People could only look up to him and could not stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Most of this aura pressed down on Lu Xiling, but a small part of it spread out in all directions. The other cultivators felt it and involuntarily took a few steps back. Even Wu Wudi and Shui Wuhan's eyes lit up. The way they looked at Di Shitian changed again. It was very different. Wu Wudi felt a burst of heroism rise in his heart. He thought to himself, good. Di Shitian is really a good opponent. Just this aura alone makes my fighting spirit stir. I must find a chance to fight with him. Otherwise, I will regret it for the rest of my life. Shui Wuhan also thought to herself, this aura, if he is not a natural king or has been in a high position for a long time, he will never have such majesty. Although it is a little faint, it is somewhat similar to my father's. His identity is definitely not simple. Such a person is worth befriending. He will definitely be helpful to my Aquamoon paradise. Others might not know, but he knew very well that this kind of aura was definitely not something an ordinary person could possess. That kind of aura of a high position could only be slowly cultivated by those who were truly in that position. There was no way to pretend. Lu Xiling's expression changed when the pressure fell on him. It was as if a few heavy mountains had suddenly appeared on his body. The terrifying aura made it difficult for him to even breathe. Clang. However, he was, after all, a sword cultivator whose attack power could be compared to a martial cultivator. Under this kind of terrifying pressure, his body suddenly trembled. From his body, a swift and fierce sword intent burst forth. This sword intent was incomparably sharp, as if it could split a mountain in half. It quickly resisted the pressure outside his body. Although it couldn't completely resist it, at least he could still stand in front of Sakura. HMPH. Why? Because my profound heart sword sect is one of the top sects in the cultivation world. Because my master is the great elder of the profound heart sword sect. I, Lu Xiling, am an elite disciple of the sect. With every sentence Lu Xiling spoke, the sword intent on his body became sharper, and even his back seemed to be straighter. With an arrogant face, he looked at Di Shitian in disdain. He was full of self-satisfaction. A person who only knows how to rely on the sect behind him. When he meets a strong enemy, He only knows how to use his sect as his backing. Such a person is nothing more than a conceited and useless coward. Di Shitian sneered, so what if you have a sect behind you? If you provoke me, I, Di Shitian, will kill you like a weed. When the last sentence was spat out, it was as cold as a gust of wind, chilling one to the bone. Clang, clang, clang. With a shake of his body, over 20 pitch-black crescent-shaped blades rapidly condensed from within his body. Each and every one of these blades were flickering with a cold light. Once they appeared, they quickly danced around Sakra's body. These were all demonic mist blades, condensed from demonic chi. However, the demonic mist blades that appeared now were a little strange. They weren't emitting demonic chi, but a sense of sorrow. If someone were to examine it carefully, they would discover that under this sorrow, there was a strong demonic chi hidden within. Di Shitian naturally wouldn't be so foolish as to reveal his demonic aura in front of so many cultivators. Wouldn't that be telling everyone that he was a demon, a member of the demon race? At that time, it would be very difficult for him to leave this place. That was why he had wrapped the demon mist blade in a thick layer of sorrow. Under the cover of the sorrow, his demonic aura wouldn't be revealed. Once the demonic mist blades were condensed, they immediately slashed towards Lu Xiling without any hesitation. Furthermore, they didn't hold back in the slightest. 20 blades blasted out at the same time. From top to bottom, they completely covered Lu Xiling's entire body from top to bottom, covering every angle. This kind of attack was completely intended to completely annihilate him in one strike. Those who oppose me must die. Otherwise, if they didn't kill the tiger, they would leave behind future troubles. Looking at Lu Xiling's appearance, how could Di Shitian not know that Lu Xiling's heart would definitely be filled with jealousy and hatred towards him? Perhaps Lu Xiling couldn't do anything to him, but if he returned to the sect and beat up the young, and the old came out, then he wouldn't be able to handle it. Perhaps there would be great danger. This was originally the specialty of some immortal cultivation sects. Since you dare to make the first move. When Lu Xiling saw the demon mist blade that drew out streaks of black light and directly covered him, his expression finally changed. His hand instantly landed on the ancient sword on his back. It had to be said that although he was a loathsome person, he was able to reach the position of an elite disciple in the mystic heartsword sect. The cultivation in his hands was definitely not fake. With a twist of his wrist, the ancient sword was suddenly unsheathed. Thousand-splitting sword art. His body emitted a sharp sword intent. With a twist of the sword, it seemed as if the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth had all turned into sword chi and surged into the sword. Like lightning, thousands of swords suddenly appeared beside him. These swords were all exactly the same. It was as if in an instant, his ancient sword had suddenly split apart, and his entire body was covered by thousands of swords. His entire body was like a hedgehog covered with needles. Ding ding ding. Amidst a wave of rapid collisions, the 1,000 ancient swords that covered Lu Xiling's body were annihilated one after another. Sword chi flew out and bombarded the stone walls in the surroundings. It was very strange, the stone walls were actually not damaged in the slightest. It was incomparably strange. In the blink of an eye, the 1,000 ancient swords were annihilated, and the 20 demonic mist blades were annihilated as well. In the end, there was only one blade left. Moreover, its light was dim, as if it could be destroyed at any time. This blade slashed across in an instant, and with a pu sound, it cut a deep wound on Lu Xiling's left arm. Blood began to flow out with a splash. Today, I, Lu Xiling, will not let you go. A trace of deep hatred flashed in Lu Xiling's eyes. Looking at the wound on his arm, his killing intent was even more awe-inspiring. The ancient sword in his hand moved, and he was about to pounce on Di Shitian to fight to the death. Wait, I think this is only a small matter. Both of you are young geniuses. It is not worth it to fight to the death over such a small matter. Just at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared between Sakra and Lu Xiling as he hurriedly opened his mouth to persuade them. Looking at the simple fan in her hand, who else could it be but Shui Wuhan? Hihi, young noble Shui is right. Both of you have a bright future ahead of you. Why are you trying to kill each other here? Not only Shui Wuhan, at this time, even if Shui Wuhan stood in front of him, Indra might not listen and would definitely fight to the death. However, when the second voice came out, it made all the cultivators in the cave tremble at the same time. Indra frowned, and the majestic aura that was originally emitting couldn't help but be withdrawn back into his body. At the entrance of the cave, an old man with a long flute in his hand smiled at the cultivators in the cave. This person was very familiar to all the cultivators here. He was none other than Elder Xiao of the Qin family's flute and flute 2 elders. Everyone, including the time you spent in the heart-tempering song in the outer domain of the zither domain, tomorrow is the 1-month deadline. Because I am afraid that something will happen to you, the family head specially arranged for me to come and lead you out of the zither domain. As for whether Mr. Di has obtained the verdant zither or not, as long as you leave the zither domain, you will know clearly. Elder Xiao said with a smile. But in his heart, he secretly said, that was close. Fortunately, the patriarch predicted that there might be a dispute in the zither realm. Previously, a blood-stained coat with a deep background died in the zither realm. It was already very troublesome. If these two were to fight now, no matter who died, they would be in big trouble this time. Fortunately, I came in time. Although the Qin family was not afraid of any enemies, no one wanted to have trouble. Since everyone was able to make it this far in the zither domain, you must have obtained many treasures that you could not have imagined before. Don't worry, the Qin family has already made it clear that whoever obtains these treasures will have their own opportunities. The Qin family will not take them back. Now, please follow me to the illusory door of nothingness and leave this place first. As soon as Elder Xiao said this, most of the people in the cave were immediately filled with joy. When they obtained those weapon embryos earlier, they were faintly worried that the Qin family would take them back. Now that there was a guarantee, that was to say, what they obtained in their hands was their own. With these weapon embryos, the dangers they experienced in the zither domain were worth it. Humph. Lu Xiling looked at Di Shitian and snorted heavily. A trace of hatred flashed in the corner of his eyes. Obviously, he would not let him go in the future. Sakura furrowed his brows inwardly as he glanced deeply at Elder Xiao. If it wasn't for his sudden arrival, as long as they fought together, he would have a way to make Lu Xiling stay here. Now, he was afraid that he would bring another enemy. Tomorrow is the 7th month. I would like to ask for everyone's guaranteed monthly votes tomorrow to help me charge into the monthly votes list once again. Brothers, Di Shitian wants to proclaim himself as the ancestor, so he needs the monthly votes, this divine weapon, as a weapon. Once he reaches the top of the monthly votes list, the protagonist will be able to hold on to the tiger soul. Chapter 171. Lu Xiling, Di Shitian secretly said in his heart, and a murderous intent emerged. He secretly made up his mind that the next time he met him, he would never let him leave alive. He could see that a person like Lu Xiling was definitely a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Moreover, he liked to sow discord the most. If he returned to the profound Heartsword sect and found some elders to say a few words, he might have one more sect as an enemy. This would put considerable pressure on his current situation, or on the southern barbarian demon tribe. A top sect was a colossus. It was far from what the southern barbarian demon tribe, which had not yet been fully developed, could resist. They might even be crushed into pieces. What's more, Di Shitian still had a great enemy in front of him, the Thousand Beast sect, which was also a great sect that was definitely not inferior to the profound Heartsword sect. These were all incomparably heavy mountains, which were far from what Di Shitian could match. Accumulate strength. I must accumulate strength as soon as possible. This time, I must find a way to enter the Qin family. Di Shitian's eyes flashed, and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. A pressing pressure came head-on. What he lacked was time. He really lacked time. If there was a divine tool in this world that could speed up time many times in the outside world, he sincerely hoped that he could enter it and cultivate for hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of years. At that time, he would come out and sweep everything. Unfortunately, this was just a beautiful wish, just a beautiful fantasy. In reality, there was no such thing. Even if there was, it was definitely not something he could enter and obtain. The arrival of Elder Xiao unexpectedly ended the trip to the Qin domain. However, no one had any objections, because even if Lu Qiqin was really in the maze, no one dared to set foot in it. The 9 circles maze was really too terrifying, and too disgusting. Once you entered, you would not be able to control your own life and death. Therefore, no one would be willing to enter the maze if they continued to stay. Leaving now was actually the best outcome. In any case, each of them had obtained a lot of artifact embryos. Any one of these artifact embryos was something that people in the immortal cultivation world would fight for. Who would give up on benefits and throw away their lives? Naturally, all of them were incomparably obedient. Following behind Elder Xiao, they came to a door of illusions with ease. This door of illusions had already been activated. As long as they entered it, they would be able to leave the Guqin realm. Those who had experienced it before did not need anyone to guide them. One by one, they entered the door of illusions. In the twinkling of an eye, they left the Guqin realm. In front of the spell altar outside the Zither realm, the Qin family head, Qin Xian, Katomi, and the others all stared at the spell altar as if they wanted to see some strange reaction. One cultivator after another walked out of the gate. The spell altar was still the same, there was no change at all. Qin Xian could not help but reveal a trace of disappointment in his eyes. Suddenly, an elegant young man in white clothes walked out. A white light suddenly shot out from the altar, and behind the white light, a yellow light appeared. The yellow and white light intertwined and flickered on the altar. It lasted for a few breaths, and then mysteriously retracted back. Two-colored light. It seems that Shui Wuhan of the Watermoon Paradise obtained a magic treasure embryo. But it's not the Lu Qiqin. If it was the Lu Qiqin, the altar would have sensed it and released a 7-colored light. Qin Xian's eyes narrowed when he saw the light on the altar. Then, he sighed with disappointment and shook his head. He did not say much. It turned out that this altar was not only the place to open the illusionary void door, but also to check what kind of tool embryo the person brought out. The 2-colored lights just now indicated that a tool embryo of the magic treasure level had been taken out. This kind of tool embryo of the magic treasure level was indeed very precious. As long as one refined it slightly, they could obtain a precious magic treasure. However, compared to the Lu Qiqin, it paled in comparison. It was not worth mentioning. After Shui Wuhan, the altar trembled again, and 2 more rays of light shot out. At this time, the one standing on the altar was Sakura. Seeing the rays of light shooting in all directions, the purple drum in his storage pouch suddenly trembled, as if it was resonating with the altar. It was very strange, and his body tensed up. He didn't expect that the Qin family would have such a brilliant method. No wonder they were not afraid of others finding the Lu Qiqin. They could even trigger things in their storage space. This method was very shocking. His heart couldn't help but tighten. What a powerful altar. Will the LV Qi Zither that was sucked into my king pattern purple pool be discovered? If it is discovered, I will be in big trouble. Fortunately, the altar did not seem to be able to sense the space in the royal pattern. It only released a 2-colored light, indicating that a magic treasure embryo had been brought out. Sakura also walked down the altar steadily and stood together with the other cultivators who came out. It's just that, the sadness and indifference on his body made him stand out from the crowd all along, which was especially eye-catching. No. Not yet. Qin Xian looked at the people who had come out and shook his head again and again. When the last person came out, the altar still did not reveal any trace of the Lu Qiqin. He knew that he would not be able to bring the Qin out this time. Sighing was one thing. Now that everyone in the Zither realm had come out, he naturally had to stand up and say a few words. He gestured to Katomi beside him and they walked up the altar together. Then, he looked at the 100 or so people who had come out. He raised his voice and said, "Everyone was able to survive and come out safely in the Zither realm. It is clear that each of you will have limitless achievements in the future. When we entered, there were thousands of elites. Now, only 100 or so have come out. Although I have always emphasized that the Zither realm is very dangerous, there is nothing I can do about those who have died in there. Then, a trace of sadness flashed across his face. Most of the cultivators below looked relieved, and there was a hint of lingering fear on their faces. Clearly, they remembered their experience in the Zither realm. If they were given a choice, perhaps very few people would choose to enter the Zither realm again. However, the Zither realm is opened to everyone this time to choose a husband for my daughter. The criteria for choosing a husband is to bring out the Lu Chi Chin. The altar just now showed that everyone did not bring out the Lu Chi Chin. Therefore, in this marriage, I can only say that the fate between you and my daughter Katomi has not come yet. Clearly, Qin Xian's words now had the intention of chasing the guests away. Smack. At this time, in an area covered by blood-red clouds, there were 3 towering peaks in a row. They were arranged in a triangle and formed a hidden array. On the peaks, there were many towering palaces from the waist up. There was no telling how many there were. In the center of these 3 peaks, there was a mountain that was much shorter than the other 3 peaks. There were more houses and palaces on the mountain, and they were even more majestic. Under the cover of the blood clouds that did not disperse, this area seemed to be filled with an evil aura that caused one's heart to turn cold. In the highest palace, a middle-aged man dressed in blood-red robes, who looked very similar to Xue Yini, had a ferocious expression on his face. He kept twitching, and with one hand, he tore off a large piece of the chair he was sitting on. One must know that this chair was made of dark gold meteoric iron, which was incomparably hard. It was obvious how much strength this person used to tear off such a hard object. An incomparably beautiful woman sat next to him, silently weeping and crying, "Husband, Yinyi was destroyed this time and only a strand of her soul managed to escape. I don't know when she'll be able to reconstruct her body. We have to take revenge for this. I'll cut the person who injured Yinyi into 1,000 pieces. Otherwise, how can I get rid of the pain in my heart?" The beautiful woman's expression was incomparably fierce, and the words she spat out were even more unique. It could be said that it was directly proportional to her appearance. Investigate. We must find out who dared to touch the son of Xue Wutian. As long as we find out who it is, I'll capture him and send him to the blood prison. I'll let him have a taste of what it means to wish he was dead. I will let him suffer endless torture every day. The blood demon said coldly. Traces of blood-red light flickered in his eyes. Mph. This time Yinyi went out completely because of the Qin family's matchmaking event. Otherwise, my son wouldn't have become like this today. All of this is related to the Qin family. No matter who did this to my son, the Qin family won't let them off so easily. The beautiful woman viciously shouted again. Her face was full of hatred. The Qin family? The blood demon suddenly hesitated and said in a deep voice, although the Qin family is related, they cannot be touched for the time being. The Qin family is too mysterious. They have always been known for their sound attacks. Their sound attacks are mysterious and hard to defend against. If we really face them, our blood cloud sect may not be able to do anything to them. His words were filled with fear towards the Qin family. Even at this time, he had not made up his mind to completely fall out with them. This matter needs to be considered at length. It's just that Yin Yi's soul is not complete. Using the soul summoning technique will take too long, and his mind is not clear. We have no idea who beat him up like this. The only thing we can do now is to find out who is participating in the Qin family's matchmaking event. Once we find out who did this, I will not let them go. The blood demon took a deep breath and let out an evil roar. These 2 people were none other than the Blood Cloud sect's sect master and his wife. Xue Yini was their only son. Under the protection of the divine treasury jade, Xue Yini's soul had instinctively returned to the Blood Cloud sect. However, at that time, Di Shitian's mournful cry was too powerful. Although his soul had escaped, it was not complete. He had lost a part of it. Now, his mind was not clear. Otherwise, he would have known about Di Shitian's existence. The new July is here. I'm begging for everyone's guaranteed monthly votes. Help me make another push. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. to read more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 172. Wan Dao, quickly come and see me. After the blood demon roared, he was still the master of a sect. After taking a few deep breaths, he raised his head and transmitted his voice to the outside. However, his face was still terrifyingly gloomy. It was as if his body contained a huge volcano that could explode at any time. Pater. Following the sound of hurried footsteps, a middle-aged man in black clothes quickly walked into the hall. When he saw Shui Mo and the beautiful woman, he immediately revealed a respectful expression. He bowed and said, "Disciple Wan Dao greets Master and Master's wife. May I know if Master has something important to instruct this disciple to come here?" He lowered his head, not daring to look around wantonly. In his lowered eyes, a trace of cold light faintly flashed. However, when he raised his head, the cold light had already disappeared. It was replaced by a respectful look. The change was so quick that it could be said to be unparalleled. "Dao, this time, your junior brother Yin Yi died in the Qin family's groom search and returned with only a remnant soul. The culprit must be a group of people who entered the Qin family's groom search. Immediately bring people to the Qin family's groom search and guard outside. Carefully investigate who among these people has the strength to kill Yin Yi. If you find out who the culprit is, immediately bring people to capture him and bring him to the sect." The blood demon said fiercely, "As long as you do this, Master will naturally reward you handsomely. You can choose any one of the sect's 3 supreme scriptures." There were 3 supreme scriptures in the Blood Cloud sect: the Blood Cloud Sun Concealing Technique, the Blood Demon Divine Radiating Scripture, and the Blood Sea God Refining Formation. Each of these 3 books contained an unprecedented amount of power, and they were all methods that could be cultivated to become an immortal. They were also the foundation of the Blood Cloud sect. Ordinary disciples could not see them at all. Only those who were truly talented or valued could be taught them. When Wan Dao heard this, a trace of light flashed in his eyes. He hurriedly said, "Rest assured, Master. No matter who dares to harm junior brother, I will do my best to find him. Even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground, I will not hesitate." In his words, he expressed his loyalty and did not mention the scriptures at all. "Yes, that's for the best. Go and do it immediately. However, you must not act blindly without thinking when it comes to the Qin family." The blood demon waved his hand, indicating for him to leave. A strange expression flashed across Wan Dao's face when he heard about the Qin family. Without saying anything else, he quickly left the main hall. Not long after, he led a group of people and left Blood Cloud Peak, heading straight for China's Qin family. In the Zither Melody Valley, the cultivators who came gradually left. Although the surviving cultivators were regretful that they couldn't become the Zither clan's son-in-law, when they thought of the large amount of artifact embryos on their waists, they were all overjoyed and felt that this trip was not in vain. Standing on the altar, Qin Xian's expression was gloomy as he sighed several times. When Katomi saw this, she softly said, "Father, don't be too sad. If we can't do it this time, we'll think of another way. Our Qin family has been passed down for so many years. We won't let it end in our generation. If it really doesn't work, I'm willing to wait 3 years and enter the Heavenly Demon's secret mirror once. If I can obtain great luck and find the legendary mysterious pagoda, our Qin family will definitely be able to pass it down. If we can't find it, then the worst that can happen is that our Qin family will fight with that demon. This can be considered as the final contribution to the Zijin continent. Our Qin family's mission can be considered complete." When Katomi saw that no one could bring the green jade zither out of the Zither realm, her face was filled with disappointment and relief. After all, it was no wonder. No one wanted their entire life to be decided by a marriage. It was just that as a descendant of the Qin family, she had to fulfill her responsibility and couldn't refuse. Forget it. This is all we can do now. We didn't have much hope for the green jade zither in the first place. This is good too. At least, we don't have to sacrifice your happiness. After all, Qin Xian was the head of the family. Moreover, Music was the best way to cultivate people. He took a deep breath and recovered his mind. He smiled at Katomi and didn't pursue this matter too much. Mr. Chin, I would like to enter the Chin family to learn music. I wonder if you can accept. Just as the father and daughter were talking, there was still one person below the altar who had yet to leave. Looking towards the source of the voice, they saw Sakura, who was wearing a faint sorrowful aura, standing below quietly as he spoke in a deep voice. Di Shitian had come this time to learn the Chin family's zither skills and music theory. This was also his only purpose in coming to the secular world. However, in the process, there seemed to be some side issues, and he made several enemies in succession. Of course, no matter how many enemies there were in the world of immortal cultivators, he wouldn't mind. He was very clear about his purpose. Therefore, when the others left one after another, Di Shitian didn't leave. Instead, he stood below the altar and waited for the others to leave before opening his mouth to ask for permission. Di Shitian's sudden words immediately aroused the curiosity of Qin Xian and Katomi. For gazes fell on him at the same time. When he saw that it was Di Shitian, a strange look flashed across Qin Xian's eyes. He still had a rather deep impression of him. More than that, it was the nonchalant action of taking out the monkey wine in the valley. This made him realize that the person in front of him was no ordinary person. So it's you. I remember that you used the priceless monkey wine in the valley to exchange for the pill formula and pill cauldron. Qin Xian stroked his beard and smiled. Previously, you successfully passed the test of the heart-refining song. Before that, you already had the qualifications to join the Qin family and become a disciple of the Qin family. Now is no exception. As long as you don't join other sects, you can become a member of the Qin family. His words were quite pertinent. The heart-refining song was the only test for the Qin family to choose disciples. Those who passed it were qualified. Although Di Shitian didn't choose to become a disciple of the Qin family before, he could choose to join again now. Katomi's eyes lit up. She knew that the person in front of her was the most mysterious and unfathomable of the 5 people her father had mentioned. She couldn't help but secretly size him up. At this moment, Di Shitian lightly shook his head and said something unexpected. Family head Qin, you've misunderstood. I'm not saying that I want to join the Qin family and become a disciple of the Qin family. What? What do you mean by that? Qin Xian frowned slightly. The aura of a family head immediately burst forth from his body. When he looked at Di Shitian, he faintly felt a heavy pressure. If it was someone else who hadn't reached the core formation stage, they would feel a bit suffocated by this pressure. However, it didn't seem to have any effect on Di Shitian. He stood proudly in place and naturally revealed a unique temperament. He said, I, Di Shitian, only want to learn the art of the Qin, the theory of the Qin, and the music of the world. I don't want to learn the Qin family's secret art of sound attacks. If you agree, I can give you 10 embryos from the Qin realm in exchange. With the 7 sins demonic zither in hand, Di Shitian had already begun to grasp the essentials of sound attacks. Moreover, he also had the divine melody of 7 sins, which was known as the divine melody of sound attacks. With this divine melody, it wouldn't be difficult to master the art of sound attacks. He was a demon and didn't want to enter a human cultivation family. That way, there would be a huge burden in the future. In his previous life, he was a businessman. He knew very well that in the real world, many things appeared to be priceless on the surface. However, as long as the price was right, even the most precious treasures could be easily placed in front of you. There was only one important point: exchange. Whether or not he could achieve his goal, there was no other reason than the price. Millimeter. A strange expression appeared on Qin Xian's face. He said strangely, if you want to learn the art of the Qin, the theory of the Qin, and the music of the Qin, you can find any zither master in the secular world to learn. Why do you want to learn in my Qin family? You even took out weapon embryos to exchange. Do you know that these weapon embryos, placed in the immortal cultivation world, are difficult to find even with 10,000 gold? You actually took out 10 of them at once. Obviously, he was a little surprised. Speaking of which, Di Shitian's request was too strange. The Qin family had never met anyone who entered the Qin family not to become an apprentice, but only to learn the art of the Qin and the theory of the secular world. It had to be said that this was quite strange. Which zither master in the secular world can compare to a Qin family? How can one teach more music than a Qin family, and more complete? Either don't learn, or learn. I, Di Shitian, want to learn the best, the most complete. Di Shitian had already anticipated Qin Xian's doubts and said without hesitation. After he finished speaking, he opened his storage bag and took out 10 weapon embryos that were shining with treasure light. Each of these weapon embryos could be said to be of high quality. As long as they were completely refined, they would be mid to high-grade magic artifacts. If they were nurtured as life source magic artifacts, they might be able to become magic artifacts in the future. The magic artifacts in the hands of all the Qin family disciples were all obtained from the Qin realm. In other words, they were refined from these weapon embryos. From this, it could be seen how important the Qin realm was to the Qin family. These weapon embryos could only display their true power in the hands of the Qin family. At this moment, Di Shitian threw out 10 of them at once. Just to learn the art of the Qin, it could be said that he was very generous. Qin Xian looked at the 10 weapon embryos floating in the air and didn't immediately answer. Kotomi carefully examined Di Shitian's body. When she saw his eyes, her body couldn't help but tremble slightly. What kind of eyes were these? They actually contained so many emotions. Vicissitudes, sorrow, determination, unyielding. All kinds of indescribable emotions intertwined together, causing his gaze to become incomparably deep. When she saw Di Shitian say that he wanted to learn the zither, she couldn't help but take a step forward and say softly, "If it's only to learn the art of the zither, I, Kotomi, will agree and teach you personally. However, you cannot live in the Qin family. You must build your own bamboo house in the valley. You cannot call yourself a disciple of the Qin family. I will also not teach you any secret techniques related to sound attacks. Can you accept these conditions?" "Why not?" Di Shitian nodded without hesitation. With a wave of his hand, he put the 10 weapon embryos into his storage bag and lightly tossed them towards the spell altar. Then, without any reluctance, he turned and left the Qin realm, walking towards the purple bamboo forest in the Qin Music Valley. He was going to build a bamboo house in the bamboo forest as a temporary place to live. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 173. Seeing Di Shitian leave, Qin Xian glanced at Kotomi in confusion. "Xin, why did you suddenly agree to his request? Something like this has never happened before in our Qin family. Could it be that you—" He looked at her strangely, the meaning in his words self-evident. "Father, what are you thinking of?" Qin Xin was extremely intelligent and naturally understood. A layer of silk-like pink quickly appeared on her snow-white neck. She was wearing a veil and her face couldn't be seen, but it could be guessed that she must be blushing. Lightly stomping her foot, she said angrily, "Daughter and he have only met once, how could I have such thoughts? I only agreed because these 10 embryos are of great use to our Qin family. This time when the zither realm opens, it will definitely take a long time for the demon's soul to be born again. Our Qin family has also taken in a large number of disciples and it just so happens that we can give them to the new disciples. Furthermore, daughter sees that this Sakura seems to be someone who loves the zither. That's why I agreed." There was a trace of urgency in her voice, as if she was afraid that others would misunderstand. Forget it. If you agree, then so be it. It's just a Di Shitian anyway. I don't think he'll do any harm." Qin Xian also doted on Kotomi. He only shook his head and didn't object. After a moment of thought, he said, "However, since we've accepted his gift, we must teach him seriously. How about this, Xin? The Qin family's fundamental secret techniques can't be passed on to outsiders. He wants to learn the music of the secular world, so you should teach him the zither and various musical pieces with all your heart. When he learns them, let him leave on his own. In his words, he treated this as a transaction. Speaking of which, the Qin family didn't suffer a loss. In fact, they made a huge profit. If they still didn't work hard, they would be ruining the Qin family's countless years of reputation. And this was exactly what Di Shitian wanted. In the purple bamboo forest, Di Shitian chopped down some bamboo and built a bamboo hut at the edge of the forest. It was a small bamboo courtyard. It wasn't too big, about the size of a normal 3-person house. It looked a little simple and crude, but it was more than enough for him to live here. He pushed open the bamboo door and walked into the room. There was a bamboo bed, a few bamboo stools, a bamboo table, and nothing else. From the looks of it, it was as simple as it could get. Sitting on the bamboo bed, Di Shitian thought to himself, the matter of learning the zither has basically been decided. As long as I don't give myself away during this period of time and let others discover my identity, I will be able to learn the zither. At that time, I will naturally be able to leave the Zither Sound Valley and return to the southern barbarian lands. However, what exactly is the heavenly demon mystery realm that the Qin family patriarch and the others mentioned just now? That's right, when Qin Xian and Katomi were talking, although their voices weren't loud, they didn't try to cover it up. Unexpectedly, Di Shitian heard everything clearly. He did not care much about the rest, but he remembered the heavenly demon secret realm that they had mentioned. The heavenly demon secret realm had the word demon in it. There was no doubt that this secret realm was left behind by a certain expert of the demon clan. If there was something left behind, it might be of great benefit to the demon clan. Just by the 2 words heavenly demon, one could imagine that the owner of this secret realm must be a powerful expert of the demon clan in ancient times. 3 years later, the heavenly demon secret realm. No matter what, this secret realm belongs to the demon clan. How can I let the immortal cultivators monopolize it? Maybe I should intervene and go in to take a look. Maybe I can get some opportunities. Di Shitian thought quickly. Not long after, he secretly made up his mind. Although he didn't know what the heavenly demon secret realm was, he only needed to know that it was definitely related to the experts of the demon clan. It would be a pity if he didn't go and take a look at such a place. However, the decision was one thing. As for where the heavenly demon secret realm was and when it would open, he would have to slowly find out in the future. After thinking for a while, he put these thoughts aside for the time being. He sat cross-legged on the bamboo bed and silently began to check the situation in his body. Ever since he formed the meridian of sorrow, he hadn't really used his cultivation method to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. He was secretly looking forward to what kind of changes the meridian of sorrow would bring to him this time. However, just as he was about to use his cultivation method, a rhythmic knocking sound came from outside, causing him to stop immediately. He listened carefully and heard a familiar voice. "Mr. Di, are you resting? I, Hua Wanwu, would like to see you." There was a tone of respect and fear in the voice. This person was none other than the second prince of China, Hua Wanwu. "Millimeter, come in." As soon as he heard him, Di Shitian couldn't help but open his eyes. There was an indescribable light in his eyes. He said in a low voice and let him in. He wasn't too surprised that Hua Wanwu could come to the Harp Melody Valley. After all, he was the one who told him about the existence of this place. It wasn't strange that he could come. What Di Shitian was really interested in was why he suddenly came to see him at this time. A young man in embroidered clothes carefully pushed open the bamboo door and walked in. It was Hua Wanwu. After entering, he saw Di Shitian sitting on the bamboo bed and hurriedly bowed to greet him again. Di Shitian wasn't too cold and indifferent as he let him sit on the bamboo stool. He sat down on the bamboo bed and asked, "Wanwu, why aren't you in the imperial capital? Why did you suddenly come here to find me? Did something happen in the imperial capital?" Di Shitian only glanced at his face slightly and saw that there was a trace of anxiety, a trace of apprehension, and a trace of grief and anger on his face. With his life experience, How could he not see that Hua Wanwu had come this time because something must have happened? He also attached great importance to Hua Wanwu because this was related to a plan he had suddenly thought of. In the plan, if he wanted to implement it, Hua Wanwu was the best candidate. Otherwise, how could he have anything to do with a prince in the secular world? Sure enough, when Hua Wanwu heard this, he stood up again and bowed deeply, saying, "Mr. Di, this time you have to save Wanwu again. If you don't help me, Wanwu will become a dead man soon." There was a trace of deep resentment in his voice. He didn't hold back at all. Like pouring beans out, he spilled out everything in one go. It turned out that Di Shitian didn't follow him into the imperial capital. He had been in the Music Valley all this time. In the imperial capital, Hua Wanwu returned. Although he was the eldest son and had the right to inherit China, most of the officials in the court also supported him. After all, the succession had always been orderly. Therefore, if nothing unexpected happened, there was almost no problem for him to ascend the throne. However, his younger brother didn't give up. He used some unknown method to pull all the high officials in the Hall of High Officials in the country to his side. The Hall of High Officials had always had a high status. Holding on to it almost meant that he had an absolute trump card. However, Hua Wanwu's backer, Di Shitian, had been in the Music Valley all this time and hadn't returned to the imperial capital. This immediately made Hua Wanwu passive. He was afraid that the group of high officials would kill him at any time. Feeling anxious, he didn't hesitate any longer and ran over here. This led to the scene in front of him. "You mean to say that you want me to help you deal with that group of high officials?" Di Shitian looked up at Hua Wanwu and said indifferently, "I will settle the time and place for you. You just need to sit on the throne." Di Shitian's answer immediately made Hua Wanwu's face light up with joy. However, hesitation suddenly appeared on his face. He hesitated a few times, as if there was something in his heart that he couldn't get off his chest if he didn't say it out loud. After hesitating a few times, he finally gritted his teeth and said, "Mr. Di, if you can make a move, then that group of high officials can be easily destroyed. However, you don't understand why I value you so much and want to help you, right?" Di Shitian said indifferently as if he could see through people's hearts. When Hua Wanwu heard this, his body couldn't help but tremble. He said very nervously, "Yes. There's no other reason." Di Shitian looked into the distance as if his gaze could pass through the bamboo wall. He said, "I will help you ascend to the throne. You only need to do one thing for me. Once you ascend to the throne, create a golden body for me and worship me as a totem. Once you ascend to the throne, all the people will worship you and worship you every day." His words were like iron and stone. Every word seemed to contain a vast aura. The aura of solitude inexplicably surged out. The air in the entire bamboo building seemed to become incomparably heavy, as if it was oppressed. At this moment, in the instant that all the words were said, his body suddenly seemed to become abnormally tall. It was as if he wanted people to look up to him. Boom! In the sky above his head, there was a sudden explosion of thunder. Sculpting a golden body, a totem. This was no different from the gods that were worshipped in the temples of the secular world. Moreover, it was a level higher. This totem meant that as long as this decree was issued, it meant that China would be Di Shitian's descendants. This was just like how in Di Shitian's previous life, the people of Huaxia had always called themselves the descendants of the dragon, the descendants of the dragon. In Huaxia, the divine dragon was the totem. Di Shitian's words meant that he wanted to be like the divine dragon in China. He wanted to have the same status as the divine dragon in China. This was why Di Shitian wanted to help Hua Wanwu. To achieve a totem that was recognized by the whole of China, it must be implemented by the emperor. It absolutely could not be done by others. "What? Mr. Di, you want to make a totem?" Hua Wanwu was so shocked by Di Shitian's words that he let out a cry of surprise on the spot. He looked at him in disbelief. "Yes, I am the totem. If China is in trouble, I can protect you." Di Shitian glanced at Hua Wanwu slightly meaningfully. He walked to the window and looked at the purple bamboo forest. It seemed that he was not in a hurry at all. He was not afraid that he would not agree at all. Sculpting a golden body, a totem. Before leaving the Myriad Demon Valley, he did not have such a shocking idea in his mind. Naturally, he had his own reasons for doing so. When I write a book, every chapter has its own purpose. Every character also has its own purpose. When I write a book, I don't write it out of nowhere. When I write a book, there are highs and lows. I hope that all the friends who like this book can come back and vote a few times. If you have the ability, please help me subscribe to this book so that I can always maintain a kind of exuberant passion. I have a lot of plots in my mind. Whether I can write them or not depends on this kind of passion. I hope that everyone can give me this kind of passion. In addition, thank you to the dozens of brothers who voted today. Thank you very much. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,